Welcome back to the detailed mock analysis of quant section and Abhyaas Law Prep's national mock. Coming to the first question. The concept for first question is, to solve the questions in the first passage is time and work. So, here the different time taken in days is given by different number of persons for different types of works. So, if you observe the first question, what is the first one? If Ashfaq started digging alone, so this particular person Ashfaq started digging alone. So that means initially he is working alone for the first day. And he is coordinated by Mayank and Jatin respectively on the alternate days. From the next day, that means on the first day, Ashfaq is doing the work alone. On the second day, Jatin will be added. Is it Jatin? No, Mayank will be added on the second day. On the third day, Jatin will be added. So this will be continued and the total work will be equal to how much that we have to see. See, it is digging, so we have to see this particular column. See, after Ashfaq, he is doing the work in 30 days. Next, he is coordinated by Mayank. Mayank is doing the work in how many days? He is doing the work in 50 days. Next, coming to Jatin, he is doing the work in 10 days. What is the LCM of 30, 15 and 10? The LCM of 30, 15 and 10 is 30 units. So, the LCM is 30 units. So, the total amount of work will be equal to 30 units. And the amount of work in units is how much? It is 30. He is doing total amount of work is 30. He is doing in 30 days. So 30 by 30 it's 1. So 1 unit of work is done by Ashfaq per day. Next, coming to Mayank. How many units of work is Mayank doing? It is 30 by 15 which is 2. And coming to Jatin, he is doing 30 by 10 which is 3 units of work per day. So initially Ashfaq is doing 1 unit on the first day. On the second day, with the help of Mayank, he is doing how much? 1 plus 2 which is 3 units. On the third day, he is doing how much? 1 plus 3 which is 4 units. So, excluding the first day, from the second day, alternatively, per cycle, he is completing 7 units of work. So, 4 cycles will give us 7 4s are 28 units. That means 4 cycle means 8 days. So, first day plus 8th day, till 9 days, he is going to do 29 units of work. On the 10th day, he will be coordinated by Mayank and the work done by Ashfaq plus Mayank on the 10th day is 3 units. But we just need to do 1 unit because the total work is 30 units. We have done 29 units of work in the 9th day. So we are left with only 1 unit of work. But the total capacity of those two persons to do is 3 units, right? So we just need to do 1/3 part of the entire thing. So it is how much? It is 9 1 by 3. Or if you did not understand that cycle method, you can keep on writing 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 4. It is how much? 7 4s 28 plus 1 29. 29 units of work is done for how many days? It is done for 9 days. On the next day, we can do 3 units of work. That particular, those two persons can do 3 units of work. But just 1 unit of work is required. So 1/3 of the time is sufficient. So that is why it is 9 1 by 3 which is an option C. Coming to question number 110. Lokesh, Faisal and Jatin started watering the field. So we have to observe this particular column. But after 2 days, Lokesh left. So Lokesh is working for 2 days and he is leaving. Now, Jatin also left 2 days before the completion of work. If we assume that it is X day, it takes X days to complete the amount of work, then Jatin will be working for X minus 2 days, X minus 2 into Jatin. There is no condition for Faisal, so we can directly say that he is doing X number of days. So X number of days into amount of Faisal. Here, what will be the total work? Same method. What are the persons? Lokesh, Faisal and Jatin. Lokesh, Faisal and Jatin. What is the amount of work done by Lokesh? It is 24. Now, it is not the amount of work. It is a time taken by Lokesh to complete that particular work. It is 24 days. Next, Faisal, it is 12 days. Next, for Faisal, it is 24, 20 and 12. So, it is for Faisal, it is 20 days. So, for Faisal, it is 20 days. Next, Lokesh, Faisal and Jatin. It is not, Jatin, it is 15 days. What is the LCM? What is the LCM of 24, 20 and 15? 48, it's not divisible by 20. Similarly, 72, it's not divisible by 15 and 20 as well. So, it is 24 5s, it is 120. So 120 is divisible by 20. So amount of work done by Lokesh is how much? It is 5 units. 120 by 24. Next, amount of work done by Faisal. 120 by 20, which is 6 units. Next, amount of work done by Jatin. It is 120 by 15. It is 8 units. So just substitute the amount of work in terms of units. Here the total amount of work is 120 units. So we will be equating it to 120. Now, amount of work done by Lokesh is 5 units per day. So 2 into 5 plus, we don't know the value of x, that is the thing which we have to calculate. And the amount of work done by Jatin is 8 units per day. And the amount of work done by Faisal, it is 6 units per day. 6 units per day, this is equal to 120. So if you simplify, how much will we be getting? 8x plus 6x, it is 14x. 10 minus 16, it is minus 6 is equal to 120. So 14x is equal to 126. And the value of x is equal to 9 days. The value of x is equal to 9. That means here Faisal is working 9 days. Here what is the value of x? The amount of time taken by Faisal is the value of x, which is 9 days. Yeah, 9 days. Now, I hope this is clear. Yeah. Question number 111. What is the difference in the number of days taken by Rakesh and Mayank together for seeding? Okay, what is the time taken by Rakesh and Mayank for seeding? Seeding means this one. Rakesh and Mayank for seeding. It is 1 by 12 plus 1 by 8. Because 1 by 12th part will be done by Rakesh for seeding. Similarly, 1 by 8th part will be done by Mayank for seeding. So, here, what is the LCM? It is 24. So, it is 2 plus 3, which is 5 by 24. So, they will be taking 24 by 5 days. 24 by 5 days. Next. Faisal and Jatin for watering. Okay. Faisal it is 20, Jatin it is 15. So 1 by 15 plus 1 by 20 for watering, you have to observe like this. Okay, now what is the LCM? LCM is 60. As I said, LCM is 60, 15 4s are 60, 23 is 60. Yeah, it is 7 by 60. So it will be taking 60 by 7 days. See, the options are in terms of mixed fractions. But instead of subtracting 24 by 5 from 60 by 7, it is better to do it directly. See, 5 4s are 20, so it is 4.8. Next, 7 8s are 56, 4 will be left. So 7 5s are 35. So 5 will be left, it is 8.57. So what is the value of 8.57 minus how much? 4.8. It is around how much? Exactly, it is 3.77, right? What is it? It is greater than 3 and less than 4. So option D is the answer. So if you want to subtract it directly, 60 by 7 minus 24 by 5, in that case also, you will be getting the same answer. The LCM is 35. The LCM is 35. 7 5 is 35. 5 into 60 it is 300. Minus 5 7 is 35. So 24 7s will give you how much? 24 5s it's 120 plus 48 it is 168. So we will be getting 132 by 35. Now 132 by 35 means 35 3s are 105. Yeah, 27 will be left. So it is 327 by 35. But this is killing your time at least for 20 to 30 seconds. So if you, instead of doing that, if you directly go through decimals and select the option, that will be the right approach, because you have to select the right answer in less time. So that is why I suggest you to go with decimal approach, because you can directly select option D. Next, coming to question number 112. What is the ratio of the average number of working days of Rakesh and that of Faisal for all the activities? Okay, Rakesh and Faisal for all the activities. So 20 plus 10, 30, 50, 50 plus 30, it is 80. For Rakesh, it is 80. For Rakesh, it is 80. They are asking the ratio of Rakesh and Faisal. For Faisal, it is how much? It is 32, 67, 67 plus 18. It is 85. So it is 80 is to 85. 5 table. 16, 5 table 17. So it is 16 by 17, which is an option B. So yeah, coming to the difficulty level of this particular passage, it is in between. We can say that it is moderate to difficult level. The level of difficulty is greater than moderate, but not that difficult, because it is not impossible to solve, or it is not too time taking to solve, because the data is given. We just need to understand the questions and answer. So I hope you might have faced difficulty in answering 109, 110 and 1111, but this particular question is very easy to solve because it is direct interpretation and just basic simplification, and this includes a bit small basics in the concept of time and work. Yeah, anyway, moving to the second passage. Okay, between five different shops, the distribution of the number of white and black shoes sold around. Okay, in total is the white shoes and black shoes. The total sales are 800 pairs. So shop A, let the sales were selling 30% of the total. That means shop A is selling how much? 30% of 800. That means 240. It is 3 8s, 24. So it is 240. Next, shop B contributed to 10% of sales. 10% of 800 is 80. Next, shop C made a significant impact accounting to 20% of the total. That means 20% of 800 is how much? It is 160. See how I am answering directly, how I am interpreting directly, because 10% of 800 is 80. So 20% will be 80 into 2, which is 160, and that is why I had written it directly. Coming to D. D is the smallest share, which is 5%. See, D. 10% is 80, 5% will be 40, and coming to E, there is, finally, shop E had the highest sales, distributing 35% of the shoes. Let's say 35% means how much? 30% plus 5%. So it is 280. So if you add, they must sum to 800, then only your interpretation or your calculation is right. So yeah, 240 plus 88 is 320, 320 plus 160 is 480, 480 plus 48 is 520 plus 280, which is 800. So this our calculation is exactly right. So yeah, without so we are done with our reading the passage. Now question number 113. If the sum of the total number of white shoes sold by shops A and C is 240. Okay, white shoes sold by A and C is 240. They are giving. And find the number of black shoes sold. See, here there are only two possibilities. Either selling a white shoe or selling a black shoe. So the total sum this will be equal to the total, right? So here they are giving that white shoes are 240. We have to calculate the number of black shoes in A and C. Here, how much sale is there in between? I mean, what is the total sale of shop A and shop C together? It is 240 plus 160, which is 400 shoes. So how many black pairs of shoes will be there? It is 400 minus 240, which is 160. So which is an option D. Now, question number 114. This is very easy. Yeah, question number 114. The total number of shoes sold by shop F is 160 more than shop D. Okay, see, shop D's sale is 40 units, right? So shop F sale will be equal to 200, and the ratio of white and black is given as 3:2, and they are asking us to find the number of white shoes, sales of white shoes. So the ratio is white is to black is 3:2. So how many white shoes are sold? That is the question. Yeah. So white shoes divided by total parts. White parts by total parts into total number of shoes, which is 200. So 5 4s are 20. So which is equal, this is equal to 120. So 120 white shoes are sold by shop F. So which is an option A. Yeah. Find the ratio of total number of shoes sold by shop A and total number of shoes. Okay. Shop A and D. Ratio of the number of shoes sold by shop A is 240 and shop D is 40. So what is the ratio? 0 0 gets cancelled. 4 6 are 24. So the ratio is 6:1, which is in option B. That is simple. Next, find the question number 116. So the last question in this particular passage. Find the difference between the total number of shoes sold by shop B and the total number of shoes sold by shop E. So it is the difference between 280 and 80. It is how much? What is the difference? 280 minus 80 is 200. So direct interpretation. So this can be answered in less than 2 minutes. These 4 questions can be answered in less than 2 minutes if you are having good practice in the concept of percentages, or if you are familiar with the concept of percentages, and the level of difficulty for all the questions in this particular passage is easy. Yeah. Next, moving to the last passage. Okay. Rohit invested a total amount of 10 lakhs in 3 different schemes ABC in the ratio of 5:3:2. That means he's investing 5 lakhs in scheme A, 3 lakhs in scheme B, and 2 lakhs in scheme C, right? Okay. The rate of interest are X%, Y%, and Z%. So he is investing 5 lakhs in scheme A. Yeah. Next, 3 lakhs, am I right? Yeah, it is 3 lakhs, 5 is to 3 is to 2. Or you can also calculate 3 by 10 into 10 lakhs, you will be getting 3 lakhs. So yeah, he is investing 2 lakhs in scheme C. Now, rate of interest are XYZ%, okay. Simple interest earned from, yeah, this is principal, this is rate of interest, yeah. Rate of interest earned from scheme A in 3 years is 3 lakhs. So he is getting 3 lakhs interest for 3 years. That means simple interest for all the years is same. So in the concept of simple interest, what is the concept of simple interest? Interest is same every year. Interest is added only to the principal. So 1 lakh interest will be earned by A per year. So he is getting 1 lakh for 5 lakhs. That means we can directly say that the rate of interest is 20%. Now, how? See, it is 1 lakh interest for 5 lakhs. So 1 lakh divided by 5 lakh into 100, 1 by 5 into 100, which will give us 20%. Or you can also substitute in the formula of simple interest. What is the formula of simple interest? The formula for simple interest is PTR by 100. Just observe the data. He is getting 3 lakh interest. The simple interest is how much? 3 lakhs. For how many years he is getting? Yeah, the principal is 5 lakhs. I am talking only about A. The principal is 5 lakhs. The time is 3 years. We have to calculate the rate of interest by 100. 0, 0 cancel. 3 zeros cancel. I am left with 300 is equal to 15R. What will be the value of R? See, 15R is equal to 300. The value of R is 20, and that is the thing which I had written directly to save time. So, yeah. Now, moving to the next one. Ratio of simple interest earned from scheme A and scheme B for 1 year is 10:3. See, how much simple interest is earned from scheme A? It is exactly 1 lakh, right? Exactly 1 lakh. So, if it is in the ratio of 10:3, what does it mean? This particular person B is earning 30,000 as interest per year. So, if he is getting 30,000 interest, 30,000 is nothing but 10% of this, right? 10%. So, the rate of interest will be 10%. Rate of interest through scheme B is 10%. Next, coming to C. Simple interest earned from scheme B and scheme C is same for 1 year. That means C is earning 30,000 interest, 30,000 as interest per year. So 30,000 means 15,000 per 1 lakh. That means the rate of interest is 15%. So this is the table. Now, question number 117. Go through the questions. In rate of interest offered by scheme C, it is directly 15%. We got it directly. Now, question number 118. Difference between simple interest and compound interest received from scheme A in rupees if it is invested for 2 years. See, there is a direct formula to find out the difference between a simple interest and compound interest for 2 years, which is PR square by 100 square. He is talking about A. So, what is the principal of A? It is 5 lakhs. So, 5 lakhs into what is the rate of interest? It is 20. So, 20 square by 100 square. So, this is the formula. Okay. Without formula also you can do. You can calculate the simple interest PTR by 100 and compound interest P into 1 plus R by 100 whole square whole power n. The value of n is 2 because it is compounded 2 times, but it will take lot of time, and that is why I have to know this formula. The difference between simple interest and compound interest for 2 years is PR square by 100. So it is 5 lakhs into 400 divided by 100 into 100. So 2 zeros get cancelled, 2 zeros get cancelled. Next, 5 fours are 20 and 3 zeros are left. So the answer for this question is 20,000. Next, simple interest received from scheme C in 3 years. See, while reading the question, we have known that simple interest earned by scheme B is 30,000, which is same as scheme C. So from scheme C is getting 30,000 interest per year. That means for 3 years he will get how much? 30,000 into 3, which is 90,000. 90,000. Yeah. Next, question number 120. What is the total interest received from scheme B if it is invested for 18 months at compound interest compounded semi-annually? What is the formula of compound interest compounded semi-annually? See, the general formula for compound interest amount is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100 whole per n. Here n is the number of times compounded. Here it is compounded semi-annually. That means it is compounded once for 6 months. Here how many months are we having? Here we are having 18 months. It is compounded once for 6 months. So the value of n is equal to 3. So it is, what is the rate of interest semi-annually? It is, the rate of interest is how much? rate of interest earned by scheme base 10%. But here we are considering semi-annually. So we have to take this as 5% because it is R by 2. Now substitute the value. It is P into 1 plus R by 100 or R by 2 by 100 whole power n. What is the value of n? The value of n is 3. The value of n is 3 because it is compounded thrice. What is the value of principal? The value of principal is 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs into 1 plus R by 1 plus R by 200 whole cube. Here what is the value of R? The value of R is 10 as it is, or you can say 5 by 100, or you can replace it as 10. So anything will give you 1 by 20. So it is 3 lakhs into 1 plus 1 by 20 whole cube. This is the total amount. So they are asking only the interest. So how to calculate interest? Interest is equal to amount minus principal, right? See, amount is equal to principal plus interest. Here it is the formula for amount. So how to calculate only interest? You have to subtract principal from the total amount. So I am doing the same. So here we have to subtract principal from the total amount. So what is the principal? Principal from invested in scheme base 3 lakh rupees. So you have to subtract 3 lakhs. So if you solve this, you will be getting option A as the answer. I hope I am very clear. Thank you so much for watching. Keep attempting as many mocks as possible, mainly Abhyaas Law Prep. Thank you so much.
Hello students, welcome to Abhyaas Law Prep. Let's look at the mock analysis of the legal reasoning section of the mock 2620. Right. As we can see here, the first passage is about the Direct Tax Vivad Se Vishwas Act, which is a scheme that was introduced by the government where the amount of disputed taxes would be the only amount. So the payer would now be required to pay only the disputed taxes amount and will obtain a complete waiver of interest and penalty provided the payment is made before 31st March 2020. In case payment is made before 30th June 2020, additional amount will have to be paid. So what does this paragraph essentially say? This paragraph says that whoever wants a waiver of interest and penalty shall have to pay the disputed tax amount on or before 31st March 2020. And with some additional charges, you will be allowed to pay till 30th June 2020. So, as we can see here, this act has received legislative backing and it received the assent of President. On which date? Students, make sure that you underline and highlight the dates because they actually impact the answers of the questions, right? And making it a valid law. A taxpayer, more formally referred to as an appellant in this act, is eligible to avail the scheme as per the act if in their case. Now these are the conditions that are given which says who are these appellants to whom the act is applied to. An appeal or writ petition or special leave petition has been filed by the appellant or the department. So it can be either the appellant or the defendant. If they are filed the case regarding the tax amount, if there's a dispute and that dispute has been initiated either by appellant or by the department, and the said appeal or writ petition or special leave petition is pending. So what is the nature of this case? The case is still pending. So if the case is still pending, even they can avail this particular scheme, right? So an order has been passed by the High Court in a writ petition on or before the specified date. What is the specified date that is being talked here? It is the 17th March 2020 and the time pending for dispute resolution panel. So dispute resolution panel is a panel that is established under the Income Tax Act which resolves the disputes regarding income tax, right? Under section 144C of the Income Tax Act. So it is established under 144C of the Income Tax Act and is still pending. So all these pending decisions that are filed for either in the High Court or in the dispute resolution panel, right? So all of these are in the ITAT, right? Appeal against such an order has still not expired or objections have been filed before the dispute resolution panel. So all of these pending disputes jo bhi hai, so all of them, if they want to avail this scheme, if they want to just pay the disputed tax amount instead of the interest and penalty, which itself would be very higher, right? So the government brought this scheme for what reason? For a reason that you can just pay the disputed tax amount instead of the penalty and interest, which is going to be much higher, right? And the procedure for availing the scheme is carried out by filing. What is the process of availing the scheme? Verifying a declaration as prescribed by the Central Board of Direct Taxes with a designated authority. Upon filing the declaration, so what are you filing here? You're filing a declaration. The pending appeal shall be deemed to have been withdrawn. So whatever pending appeal is there regarding your disputed tax, that will be deemed to have been withdrawn. Matlab, you don't need to explicitly withdraw it. The moment you file a declaration, that particular appeal is deemed to be withdrawn. And in the case of a writ petition or special leave petition before the High Court or the Supreme Court respectively, the appellant shall withdraw such petition. Right? Only this requires the withdrawal of petition if it is a writ petition in High Court or Supreme Court with the leave of the court, and provide proof of payment of the disputed tax to the DA. Right? The designated authority, you will have to provide the proof of payment of the disputed tax. Then your tax would have been deemed to be paid without interest or penalty being levied. Right? And the appellant shall also furnish an undertaking to the effect that he or she shall waive all rights, whether direct or indirect. So you're waiving all your rights, right, under direct or indirect. By doing what? By withdrawing the petition under law or equity with respect to the disputed tax scheme, right? So this is the scheme and this is a process of availing it. And what is the eligibility? The eligibility is either the dispute is pending in any of these particular forums, right? And the Central Board of Direct Taxes may issue directions from time to time. And who has the power to carry out the rules with respect to the scheme? It is the Central Board of Direct Taxes and the central government who may make rules for carrying out the provisions of this act. So that is about the passage. Now let's get into the questions about this passage. First one. A has defaulted in the payment of the direct tax which was due on March 30, 2019. The amount of the tax to be paid is disputed. So it's a disputed tax, right? And the case is pending for a year now. In order to get covered under the ambit of the scheme, he paid the disputed amount on June 29, 2020. What is the date till which you can pay the disputed tax amount? The date is the June 30, 2020. What will happen then? Additional amount will have to be paid, right? Let's look at the option. Now, can he avail it? Is he eligible? Yes, because this date is below 1 day prior to June 30, right? What amount would A be required to pay now? Only the disputed amount has to be paid in this scenario without the interest rate applicable on the same. That option is also right. Now let's look at option B. A will have to pay the disputed amount along with some additional charges. This is also right. Option C. A is required to pay the disputed amount, interest on the amount and additional charges. In the passage, they just mentioned the additional charges. They didn't mention about the interest on the amount. Why? Because interest and penalty are now waived, right? A is required to pay the disputed amount with the interest charge on the amount. No. These both options are, we know, are wrong. So how do you choose between A or B? If you look at B, this is the exact wording that is used. That is, the additional charges will have to be paid, whereas the option A doesn't talk about any additional charges, right? So option E is also wrong. So it's going to be option B for the answer. Next, according to the passage, what are the prerequisites for a scheme to become a valid law of the land? It shall be presented before the parliament. Obviously, the scheme shall be passed by the majority votes in the parliament. Obviously, the scheme shall be published in the Gazette of India. Sure, why not? The scheme shall receive the assent of the President of India. Definitely. So these are all the stages, right? These are all the prerequisites. But what have you look at here? What should you look here? You should look for the passage. What is mentioned in the passage, right? So now let's go back. As you can see here, the Act received the assent of the President of India on 17th March 2020, making it a valid law. The author says the receival of the assent of the president makes the law valid. So now which option should you choose? As per the author, you shall choose the D option. Why? Because D option is being talked about in the passage, right? Author believes if the assent of the president is received, only then it becomes a valid law. So that is going to be counted as a prerequisite as per the passage. Because what do we do in CLAT reasoning? We do the rhetoric reading, right? Let's look at the next question. Under which of the following circumstance will X be permitted to avail direct tax scheme? Option A. Objections have been filed before the panel under provision of the Act against the pleadings of X where the order has been passed. Order has been passed by the panel. And another order was passed. So these are all orders passed, right? What are we supposed to look for? We're supposed to look for the pending cases, right? Let's look at the option B. Filed against X by Department of Tax on the issue of discrepancy with respect to the tax. It's a disputed tax which was to be paid. Order was given by the High Court. Order given. When the scheme was launched, he filed an appeal after the end of the time limit. So after the time limit for filing an appeal has expired, matlab his appeal is no longer valid. Why? Because it is time barred. What do we call when the time is expired, when the limitation period is done? The time to file an appeal is there. There's a restriction, right? You cannot file an appeal whenever you want, wherever you want. So as per the restriction, there is time bar. The appeal will not be now encouraged. So this is not a pending case. Why? Because he cannot file an appeal. So it is option wrong option. X has filed a revision application before an appropriate forum under the provision of the Act which is pending till date. So is this a correct answer? Yes, because all the pending cases will now be dealt with. So you can apply under this particular scheme and you can withdraw your case and therefore you can settle your disputed taxes. So it is going to be option C. What among the following is an individual required to do on procedural level in order to avail the scheme? The pending cases before the tribunal shall be explicitly withdrawn. So what did we read there? We can read here that the procedure for availing the scheme is carried out by filing a declaration, right? This is the tribunal. You are filing a declaration and that means you are deemed to have been withdrawn. Your application is deemed to have been withdrawn. You don't need to explicitly withdraw your application. In the cases of the pending ones, the dispute resolution panel, the tribunal, right? But if it is in the High Court or Supreme Court respectively, you have to withdraw explicitly, not in the tribunal. If it is High Court or Supreme Court, then you have to withdraw. Does it make this option correct or incorrect? It makes this option incorrect. Why? Why does it make this option incorrect? Because it is not before the tribunal. It is before the High Court or the Supreme Court that you have to explicitly withdraw. Rest of it, the moment you give declaration, it means that you have implicitly withdrew the case, right? Shall be deemed to have been withdrawn is the language that is used. So, let's look at this option is wrong. An undertaking is required to be provided by the individual to the tax department to the effect that they have waived all rights, whether direct or indirect under law or equity with respect to the disputed tax. So this undertaking or the declaration is the one that is to be provided to whom? To the tax department, so that they are waiving all their rights. We just looked at that undertaking and declaration in the passage. So B is correct option. Let's look at the next question. The scheme has no provision to exclude people from availing the benefits of the scheme if they fulfill the mentioned criteria. True or false? Does the scheme talk about exclusion anywhere? Exclusion of people from the benefit of the scheme? Let's read it. The scheme or act also excludes certain persons from availing the said scheme, right? It can exclude provided the CBDT, Central Board of Direct Taxes, may issue notifications from time to time and central government may make rules. So what does it mean? It means that there is power to exclude persons from the scheme. So this statement is correct or not? This statement is correct. True, but there are two options. A and D talk about it being true. Let's look at the reasons given. As the scheme is introduced to bring down the number of pending cases related to direct tax at different forums. Option A says that. What does option D say? True, as there are already factors mentioned which exclude those people who do not fulfill the criteria. Do we have to look for true answer? No. Why? Because it says no provision to exclude people. The scheme says there is no provision to exclude people. Is it true? No, it is false. Why? Because the scheme says there is provision. So no provision is a false statement. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the true statements. No, we have to look at the false statements. Let's look at these both options as well. False, as there are individuals who might not be fulfilling the mentioned criteria and might still avail the benefit of the scheme. That is a little bit expansive. Let's look at option C. As there are provisions for excluding certain people from availing the benefits of the scheme, and government can further make rules of the same. What does the passage say? CBDT and central government may make rules. There is a provision for exclusion of people, right? But the statement says there is no provision, which is what the statement is false. It is not true. So don't get confused. If you don't read this word no, you might end up attempting A or D. But the answer is false, because there are provisions for exclusions, and who can make rules? Central government or CBDT. So it's option C. This is the next passage. Let's do with the second passage. So there's a case involves Naina, who has become infatuated with Nikhil. She began to trust him unconditionally, right? And Nikhil told Naina he was not human. So the whole passage, if you read, it says how Nikhil has deceived Naina to commit what? Did she commit suicide? Is there a suicide? Is this a suicide case? No. Why? Because she believed that she would continue to live even after her death. So did she attempt suicide? No, because she had no knowledge about attempting suicide. So when there is no attempt to suicide, is there abetment to suicide? What is abetment to suicide? Abetment to suicide is when a person aids for your suicide, right? But when there is no such suicide that has happened in this case, because she believed, what did she believe? She believed that she was supposed to leave her body here and obtain another body, the one she would be provided in Vogan, to live. She believed that even after death, she can live, right? So then that means she has no knowledge about ending her life. So it's not suicide. When there is no suicide, how can there be an abetment to suicide, right? Nikhil did not abet her suicide because there is no suicide at all. But what did he do? He attempted murder by deceiving her to her death, right? She didn't die. So now that's about the gist of the passage. Let's do the questions of the passage. Which of the following acts would be the most relevant in order to convict him of murder under section 66 if the accidents prove to be fatal? So what is the most relevant one? Let's read the options. Option A says the act of extorting money by making Naina pay to the monastery. No. Why? Because they're talking about the conviction for murder. This is extortion. Option B, the act of persuading Naina to head towards a vehicle in a busy road. That's what he did, right? Let's keep it there. The act of persuading Naina to electrocute herself in the bathtub even after realizing that the act of walking towards the truck, head towards a vehicle on a busy road, did not kill her. See, that is also right. He cannot be charged with murder as he did not commit the act of murdering directly, and the same is not covered under the section. No. Why? Because the question asks what is the most relevant one. The question did not ask completely deny it, right? So it's going to be B or C. The Naina was persuaded to head towards a vehicle in busy road. True. But what about this one? He persuaded to electrocute herself in the bathtub even after realizing the above act. So B is also included in the option C, right? So what do we choose? We choose the option that is more inclusive. So C includes B as well, right? So what do we choose then? We choose option C. This is the most relevant in order to convict him of murder, because why? The intention is proved in this case. Which of the following first brings out? Note this word. First, because this changes the answer. First brings out the intention of the defendant in order to be convicted of attempted murder. What is the first event? Let's refer to the passage. Before even asking her to die, even persuading her to die. Before persuading you to die, what did he say? He suggested her to take life insurance. He suggested her to take life insurance. After that, he said, do all of this nonsense. Do all of this nonsense where you go and head towards a vehicle on a busy road or electrocute yourself in the bathtub. So persuasion happened after he said, let's take a life insurance, right? So this is the first event that brings out the intention to get her killed. Yes or no? So let's look at the options that say that first brings out his intention. Option A says, act of Nikhil persuading Naina on call to die, electrocution, that are all later incidents, right? Option B, the act of Nikhil telling her to take life insurance with him and being him the beneficiary suggests that this was well planned. So the first bringing out attention is absorbed in this insurance. He was asking her to take insurance. So this particular option brings out his intention in the beginning, whereas A is the later stage. What about C? Very inception of the act of extorting money. Is there anywhere that the passage is talking about extortion of money? No, so we exclude that option. So the option is B, right? Let's look at the next question. In the scenario listed in the previous question, what defense is likely to be taken up by Nikhil? Okay, now this is interesting. What defense will he take? Let's look at all the options. All the deadly activities were actually carried out by Naina, and mere persuasion to getting someone to commit suicide is no crime, right? He must instigate her to do it. Mere persuasion is not crime. This sounds fair logically, right? But now let's look at the other three options as well. Nikhil is a preacher who describes the glories of afterlife so seductively that his prisoner tries to accelerate the movement by suicide. She was not accelerated. He was the one who was guiding her to death, right? She was not accelerated to die on her own. The option is wrong. Nikhil had no intention to murder her. All he wanted was to extract money for his living. Insurance scheme, he wanted himself to be the beneficiary. But the passage never mentions about the offense of extortion. If you look at the offenses that are mentioned in the passage, the offenses that are mentioned are murder and attempted murder and attempted suicide and abetment to suicide. Nowhere the offense of extortion is mentioned. When it is not mentioned, we cannot go for that option, right? So this is also wrong. He had no intention to extract money. You cannot say that. This is also wrong. Nikhil could not have thought about murdering Naina as he loved her unconditionally. Nowhere in the passage you can see that he loved her, right? This is also wrong. So the only logical argument that we are left with is option A, right? He merely persuaded her to commit suicide. It is not crime. Is it not crime? It is crime, but it is not attempted murder. Why? Because here there is no attempted suicide. Why? Because she believed that she would live even after she passes away, right? When there is no suicide, there is no abetment to suicide. Hence, he would need to prove himself that is not guilty of attempted crime, the attempted murder. The crime that is being talked about here is attempted murder. So just remember this and move ahead with clarity. So the option that is sensible and reasonable is option A. That's how you choose. Which of the following arguments is the strongest in order for the prosecution to prove that Nikhil has committed attempted murder of Naina? Answer based on your interpretation of facts in the above passage. Now you have to pick the strongest argument. If A pays B to murder C, the act of A will still constitute murder. Who is A? Who is B? Who is C? This option is wrong. Naina testifying that she would never have contemplated suicide, it being against her religion. Nowhere that is being talked about in the passage, right? Nowhere it's talked about that her religion has anything to do with what she's doing with Nikhil. So it is not correct. It is wrong assumption. Naina was deceived into thinking that she could achieve a higher sort of life by slipping into the body of another, by methods Nikhil was recommending knowingly. So Nikhil was recommending it knowingly. Matlab he had mens riya. He had knowledge. So this is the strongest point that the prosecution has, right? Because she thought that driving herself to death will mean that she's exchanging a body, but she does not have the knowledge that she's going to die. That's how he deceived her. So be careful. Next, Naina loved Nikhil unconditionally and he was taking advantage of the same. This is also correct. This is also correct. He was taking advantage of her. True. Then why do we have to go with C? Because C is more specific, whereas D is generalized. So we go with option C. Next question. Will the acts of the plaintiff amount to attempted suicide? Is it attempted suicide? The plaintiff had done, let's look at the options, right? The plaintiff had the knowledge during the commission of her actions that it would cause her death. Hence, her acts can amount to attempted suicide. Now, don't start thinking about from the perspective of Naina. How can someone who is humanly sane can not know that they would die from this? Don't think like that. Why? Because it should be rhetorically thought. You should think from the lines of the passage, right? Think from the lines of the passage. Do you really think she had knowledge? No. She was deceived into doing it. She thought she would just exchange bodies as per the passage, right? So don't use your common sense here. So she had the knowledge? No. As per the passage? No. Option B. The plaintiff was of unsound mind as she clearly couldn't understand the severity of the act she was committing. Hence she is liable. What a failed reasoning is this? She couldn't understand, so she's liable. There is no knowledge at all. When there is no knowledge, is she liable? No. There was no stage throughout the carrying out of the actions where the plaintiff intended to take her own life. Hence, her acts cannot amount to attempted suicide. She had no knowledge about what she was doing, right? That if she was killing her life. The plaintiff was made to believe that she would continue her life in the body of another and was deceived into thinking the same with the defendant. Hence, her acts cannot amount to attempted suicide. So, option C and D say that it is not attempted suicide. Option C says what? That there was no stage throughout the carrying out of the actions where the plaintiff intended to take her own life. There was a stage. Was there a stage when she knew that she was taking her own life? No. As per the passage, there was no such stage. Why? Because she was thinking that she would move into another body. This is more elaborative and inclusive. So we choose option D because she was deceived. She was made to believe that she would live. So what are they asking? They are not asking whether she has attempted suicide or not. What are they asking? They are asking for the Nikhil's guilt, not for the Naina's guilt. So option C, although is right, it would only prove the Naina's whatever action that is done. But only option D says that Nikhil had the knowledge because Nikhil made her believe she would live in a different body. So it's going to be option D. Now let's look at the next passage, right? Section 194 of the IT Act charges tax deduction at source. So what is this tax deduction at source? This is the TDS regime that is introduced. Matlab the tax is deducted at the source. Why? For ease of collection of taxes. Why? Because instead of annually collecting the taxes, we all file income tax returns, right? Instead of annually collecting the taxes, the TDS regime makes it easy that you collect the tax the moment it is with the source that you find. So section 194N of the IT Act charges tax deduction at source of 2% on cash withdrawal. So if you withdraw the cash from bank, they will charge you a tax cut. What is the objective of it? It is to prevent businesses from making heavy payments in cash. But the payments in cash are now discouraged. In order to prevent the misuse of this provision by withdrawing money from multiple accounts, the provision clarifies that TDS is to be paid on the withdrawal by a person in excess of 1 crore. So, some intelligent people, what will they do? They will use different accounts, right? They will use different accounts and withdraw money so as to not fall under the liability to pay tax. So now the tax regime, section 194N, says that if you have multiple accounts, you are a single person, right? So you cannot use the multiple accounts to withdraw money. So you cannot misuse this provision. Why? Because you are a person that is taken as an entity. It is not your account. It's going to be you. And if any account, if you withdraw, if that limit is in excess of 1 crore, right, from one or more accounts, then you will have to pay the TDS, that is the tax. Also, the government has decided to exempt certain businesses where many cash withdrawals are necessary. So there are many businesses where you have to withdraw cash every day. They are cooperative societies, company transactions, government transactions, banking transactions, and they are all exempted to pay the tax deduction at source because they do this a lot. The primary reason for the introduction of TDS regime, what is this TDS regime? This TDS regime assumes that the moment you have the account, have the money in the account, it is income. The moment you withdraw it, it becomes income. And income is liable to be taxed, right? Taxed at source. So the moment you get the account in your salary and the moment the bank pays you, it is counted as a income. That is when you can deduct tax, right? Because tax is only deducted from your income. And what is this TDS regime? It is to advance collection of tax on income in order to ensure continuous flow, right? Instead of the end of the year, so instead of paying the taxes at the end of the year, now the government doesn't have to wait till the end of the year to get the tax revenue. Why? Because this TDS regime will ensure that there is continuous flow of money in the government treasury. However, this provision puts extra burden on the banks to charge 2%. Now, who is going to charge the TDS? It is not the government, it is going to be the bank because it is paying you, right? So, it is not technically paying you. That is another legal fiction that is created. Although the bank is not paying you, it is not income, right? Although it is not income, it is taxed. Now, why? Because TDS means tax deduction at source collected by banks and then submitted to the government. Also, there is no provision in the Act which states that TDS paid under Section 194N would not be considered as income received. Right? There is no provision. It is the moment you withdraw it from the bank, it is going to be your income you are receiving, and tax will be levied on it. So there is no exception to 194N as such, which means that all the withdrawals that you do, which are above 1 crore, will be deemed to be your income and will be liable to be taxed. Hence, it can be said that TDS can only be charged on the income of the recipient and not on the withdrawal of the money from the account. Right? So what is this author saying? The author is saying that since there is no such exception for the payment by the banks, now it can be said that TDS can only be charged on the income of recipient. Right? Because what is TDS? It is the opinion of the author that says that TDS should only be charged on the income. What are you doing? You are making it for the withdrawals also, not just for the income. Right? Why? He is justifying it in the next passage. Why he believes that this regime is not working. He says, as per entry 82 of the Union list mentioned the 7th schedule of Constitution, the Union can only levy taxes on income. So, the Union can only levy taxes on the income, not on the withdrawal. So, you don't have the power. Hence, the constitutional validity of the section is very doubtful. He's saying that the section is constitutionally invalid because the Union doesn't have the power to levy tax on withdrawals. You can only levy tax on income. Yes or no? Logical. In one of the judgments, the court held that if the Central Act makes it mandatory that the tax can be collected only at one stage, it is not enough for the state to say that a person who is not liable to pay tax must nevertheless pay it in the first instant and then claim a refund at a later stage. So what is the judgment is talking about? What does the judgment say? The court said if the Central Act, if Income Tax Act ever makes it mandatory that tax can only be collected at one stage, then the state cannot come and say that you are not liable to pay tax, but you have to pay it in the first instance. So there's no such law that says that you have to pay the tax the first instant and then claim a refund at later stage. That's what we do. We file for income tax returns. What are these returns? These returns are the amount that we need to get back or be adjusted, right? If a person is not liable for payment of tax at all at any time, the collection of a tax from him with a possible contingency of a refund at a later stage will not make the original levy valid. You are saying pay tax now, claim refund later. What is it? It is not logically sound, right? That's what the author says. The author says that the court said that this kind of levy is not right. He is now criticizing how TDS regime is not good. The idea of becoming a cashless economy is a key objective for India's rapid growth. right? And the government's intention to make it cashless is also proper. The whole idea of inserting the section, why is the section inserted? 194N. 194N is inserted to make India cashless. But various loopholes hai. Why? Because withdrawal ko you're assuming it as income. That is one loophole. Another loophole is the possible contingency of refund. That's also another loophole, and the government has not clarified its position. Firstly, it is not clear whether the currency exchange, which involves many cash transactions, are exempted from this provision. So currency exchange को cover नहीं किया आपने. Why? Because you've covered cooperative societies, banking companies, but not currency exchange businesses. Secondly, 194N only considers those transactions which are made by the bank to the account holder. This means that it is only considering the transactions between bank and account holder. So if you have to be an account holder to withdraw the money from the bank, then tax deduction would happen, right? So anyone apart from account holder, if they withdraws the money, what does it make? TDS of 2% will not be applicable to them. The sum of INR 1 crore would only include the cash withdrawals made by the account holder. So the withdrawal should be in cash and that should be made by the account holder. And if that exceeds 1 crore, then you would have to pay the tax, because then that would be considered as your income and then the tax would be deducted at the source, because then the bank is trying to pay you. That's how it is considered as. It is not considered as withdrawal. It is considered as that the bank is making the payment to you. As an income, it's considered as income, not withdrawal. That is the main fallacy of this section, is what the author says. Let's look at the questions. X, the president of the cooperative society, made a withdrawal from the bank account registered on the name of the cooperative society. This is an exception, right? Exception is the cooperative society and banking companies. So this falls into the exception. So will there be TDS? Then there's an exception. No, there will not be any TDS deducted as a withdrawal of the amount took place from the account of a cooperative society. Next, which of the following is a fallacy with respect to the policy frame? Section 194N goes against the basic tenet of tax deduction at source. Let's look at the options. The transaction of each withdrawal is treated as a single business transaction. So the moment you withdraw the money from the bank, being the account holder, you are being taxed. Matlab, it is being seen as the income from what transaction? You're doing business. That's how it is considered as income from business or anything per se. It is going to view as a business transaction because it is now charged tax. It is now levied with tax, right? All the money which got credited to an individual's bank account is assumed to be his or her personal income. Now, the bank is giving you the money. Withdrawal pay, tax lag raha hai. Then what does it mean? It means that the moment account mein paise aa jayenge, what does it mean? That there is income. It is considered as the income, right? Which is going to be a personal income because of which it is being taxed. It is not withdrawal. This is also correct. The money received by the account holder through the withdrawal done is considered as a payment made by the bank to the account holder. How is it considered? It is considered as payment made by the bank to the account holder. Although you're doing withdrawal, it is still considered as payment because of which there is tax. So it is going to be all of the above. Which of the following will the author most likely agree with about the constitutionality? So what of the following options that the author think are constitutional about this provision? First, the provision is constitutional as a power to impose tax rest to the center. No. Why? Because the author says there is chances, there are questions of constitutional validity. As per entry 82 schedule 7, you cannot levy tax on withdrawals. Why? Because you can only levy tax on the income, right? He is saying that the provision is unconstitutional. Why? As the TDS on transactions which are associated with withdrawal of the amount from the bank, it is withdrawal. It is not liable to be taxed. That's what the author says. That's why the author believes it is unconstitutional. So it's going to be option B. What seems to be an irrefutable agenda of the government considering the proposal of the said provision? They asked about the provision. So how will you get confused by this question? You will get confused by the question by believing that the introduction of TDS regime was collection of tax in order to ensure continuous flow of money. 1. What is 2? The government's agenda to make it cashless. Objective of inserting 194N is based on the agenda to make the cashless transactions proper. Observe this. What is this? It is the reason for introduction of TDS regime, whereas this is the reason for introduction of section 194N provision. That continuous flow wala reason is for the TDS regime. This cashless wala reason is for insertion of 194N. Now what is the question asking here? The question is asking about the provision, not the TDS regime. So don't get confused and choose option A, because option A is for TDS regime, whereas option B, cashless reason, is for the provision. The provision is section 194N, right? So we go with option B. Why not? Why is it not A? Because A is the answer for introducing TDS regime, whereas B is the answer for the objective, cashless economy banana hai hame. Isliye we have introduced section 194N to the TDS regime. Understood? Next. An account holder signs an uncrossed bearer check in the name of B. What is an uncrossed bearer check? The uncrossed bearer check is where the check is crossed above like this. Matlab, anybody can withdraw the check in the name of B, right? And any other known person, it can either be B or any other known person. Why? Because you don't write a specific name, you write a family member's name or anybody's name and you don't cross the check. As in, it's an uncrossed bearer check. Matlab, anybody can withdraw the money, right? And then B can just withdraw money from A's account and that transaction would not be taken into account. Yes or no? Will it be taken into account? No. Why? Because the TDS regime only takes into account when the withdrawal is made by the account holder. Here it is B. He is not the account holder. Who is the account holder? The account holder is A. So only if A withdraws, it is going to be considered for taxation. So here, is this statement true or not? Would not be taken into account. Correct. True. Why? Because he is the one who is not the account holder. So this is true. True. As a withdrawal is not made by the account holder. Direct answer. Yes or no? You cannot go with option C because the amount is not specified and you cannot assume or read your mind into the question, right? It's going to be option A. Let's look at the next passage. This is a very short passage, an easy passage, right? It talks about section 56, how impossibility of performance of a particular act in a contract would make the contract void, right? So what does section 56 say? An agreement to do an impossible act in itself is void. Right? So a contract to do an act which of the contract is made becomes impossible or unlawful by reason of some event which the promisor could not prevent. This is subsequent impossibility. Section 56 is about the subsequent impossibility. It includes subsequent impossibility. Impossibility at the time of entering into contract, subsequent impossibility. It's of two types. One is the subsequent impossibility, impossibility at the time of entering into contract. Right? Agreements are based upon the acts of performance which are impossible are declared void since the law does not recognize impossible acts. Yes or no? Yes. Impossible act from the very beginning may further be divided into two categories. Impossibility, whether it is absolute impossibility, it is not possible at all. It is not possible at all from the beginning. So what does it become? It becomes void ab initio, void from the beginning. But when they are not known to the parties, what does it make? It makes the contract impossible, right? After certain time they come to know. As soon as they come to know, it is going to be void. So void ab initio. When is it void ab initio? When is void? Remember that. So agreements are covered under the provisions of section 20 dealing with mistake. It is going to be a mistake, right? Why? Because the agreement has become impossible to perform. Non-existence of subject matter of the contract at the time of entering into the contract. So when there is mistake, when they don't know that there is a impossibility that is existing. One important point in this connection is to be remembered. If one party knows about the impossibility, even then he enters into an agreement, then the other party gets a right to be compensated for the loss or damage. Why? Because you're concealing it. You know it is impossible, but still you're entering into it, which makes it a fraud and is dealt under section 17. Right? Let's look at the questions. Surya promises Saroj to put life in the dead body. You cannot do that. It is absolute impossibility. Impossibility from the beginning. So what does it make? It makes the contract void from the beginning. Prakash agrees with Vijay to discover treasure by magic. The agreement is it valid? Is it valid? No, it is void. But void under what? 20 is mistake, right? It is not mistake. It is impossibility. There is no mistake. There is impossibility. So it is void under section 56. Next, Annie and Bobby contract to marry each other before the time fixed for the marriage. Annie goes mad. So she goes mad. Later, subsequent impossibility. Then what is the contract? Is it void ab initio or void? Yes, it is void as it comes under subsequent impossibility. There is subsequent. She goes mad after marriage decided. Next, Sohan agrees to sell out to Sohail a timber lying in his godown. He did not know the timber was destroyed by fire. This is an example of mistake. He mistakenly believed that my timber was safe. My life is safe. If I don't study for CLAT, I still clear CLAT. No, that's not how it works. The timber was already destroyed by fire means that is mistake. For mistake, it is covered under section 20. Fraud is covered under section 17. Impossibility to perform is covered under section 56. Now, which section will apply? Section 20, mistake, will be applicable here. It is considered as void under section 20. Yes or no? Next, while taking a life insurance policy, in reply to questions by the insurance company, Zamir deliberately concealed. He deliberately concealed. What does it make? It makes the act void. Why? Because it is fraudulently made. Section 17, right? The policy will be covered under provisions of section 17 related to fraud. It is not valid. Why? Because section 17 is attracted now. He fraudulently did the act. So it's option C, because he deliberately concealed the fact. Next, AP High Court today dismissed the quashing plea filed by the Chief Minister and Telugu Desam Party leader Chandrababu Naidu in connection with multi-crore skill development scam. The skill development scam, right? Where the FIR, the accused can utilize the provision and seek relief from the High Court under 482 is the quashing of FIR. What is quashing of FIR? It's the removal of the case from the official documents. As simple as that. The court will appreciate the facts of the case, and if it finds that the injustice took place, if the injustice took place, only then FIR will be quashed. Matlab, you didn't do the crime, but still they impose it on you by filing an FIR. Only in those cases your FIR would be quashed. So what did the judge say in this case? He observed that no sanction to prosecute Naidu is required as use of public funds under the color of authority, but really for his own benefit. Right? He used the color of authority, saying that, but he did it for what? For his actual benefit. But he used the color of authority. It cannot be considered as an act done in discharge of his official functions. So when something is not an act done in discharge of their official functions, then they will be charged, right? You have to do your official functions and not act beyond your official functions. Naidu claimed the sanction to prosecute him was not obtained, right? Here there is an act where it is not an official function, and there is also no sanction. He's a public officer, right? So against a public officer you need a sanction. That's what you can read it implicitly from this statement. So no sanction was obtained. Sanction was not obtained. Under 17A, prevention of corruption, it was also submitted that no case is made out against him since the project in question was up and running. The project is running, no case is made against him is what he is saying. And it could not be said the public money was misappropriated. But the court is smart, so the court rejected this argument and said that the decision taken or recommendation made by the petitioner to grant sanction for payment of money on basis of documents and committing misappropriation cannot be considered as acts done. So whatever you're doing, it is not considered as acts done in your duty, right? Therefore, no prior approval from the competent authority is necessary. What is this competent authority? It is the authority that should give the sanction, right? So if you are doing, so what does it mean? What does this paragraph say to us? It means that if you are discharging your official duties, then you need a sanction from the competent authority. who should get this sanction? The prosecution should get this sanction. Simply ऐसे ही you can't file an FIR. You need a sanction to file an FIR against. मतलब what is the sanction? You need an order to file an FIR against the officer discharging his functions of the office, right? It was necessary for investigation into the offences alleged. State had urged the court not to scuttle with investigation in only 10 days since its registration. The state said, please, court, don't interfere into this. And the court said, yes, you're right. An accused in this case has no right to demand a preliminary inquiry, and the question whether such inquiry is required or not will depend on the facts and circumstances of each case. So, preliminary inquiry was requested by Chandrababu Naidu, but was it allowed? No, it was denied in cases of serious economic offences, right? When the investigation is at nascent stage, you cannot conduct a mini trial, right? So, the investigating agency, pursuant to the registration of the crime, examined more than 140 witnesses and collected documents to the tune of more than 4,000, right? And the investigation is carried out by the professionals. At this stage, with the investigation is the fulcrum of attaining now it is the finality. The decision is at finality. The investigation agency is doing its best. So now it's finality. Now the court cannot interfere. That's what the court said. Okay, we will not interfere. Now let's look at the questions, right? Before arresting a public servant for actions performed in the course of his official duties and in good faith, the police would typically need to obtain sanction. Yes or no? They should obtain sanctions if they are doing the official duties for overseeing the conduct. Assertion correct. Reason: requirement of prior sanction would prevent arbitrary or politically motivated harassment of the public servant. Yes or no? Reason is also correct. Both assertion and reason explain why sanction is required. So it's both assertion and reason are true. Next, Meena, a senior police officer, is facing allegations of excessive force, where Meena ordered the use of force to disperse the crowd. She was a police officer, right? She ordered the crowd to go away. The political party accuses her of brutality, saying that you have used excessive force. An inquiry into her conduct is initiated and they contemplate arresting Meena based on the complaint. Meena wishes to challenge her arrest. Why? On the grounds that prior sanction was not obtained. Is she acting in official capacity? Yes, because she is a police officer, she can use force, excessive force, and you cannot challenge whatever she's doing in the official capacity. Why? Because we have a provision in 17A of Prevention of Corruption Act, we just read, that says prior sanction is required to arrest someone carrying out their official duties. So in this case, was she carrying out official duties as a police officer? Yes, she was. So now, can she challenge her arrest? Still yes. Why? Because sanction was not obtained. Yes, why? Since the excessive force used can be said to be an act done in discharge of her official functions as a police officer. So it is the yes. Next, Ramesh, a government official working in the municipal corporation, is responsible for approving building permits. He's a government official and the city is plagued by corruption. He diligently reviews application and discovers multiple safety violations, because of which he rejects the Mr. Kapoor application, right? So Mr. Kapoor is now agitated. He files a complaint against Ramesh. He alleges that Ramesh took a bribe. All the allegations will be anyways made. The local police launch an investigation and arrest Ramesh. So they are arresting Ramesh based on Kapoor's complaint. So is he doing official duties as a public official? As a government official? Yes, because it is his duty to make sure that there are no irregularities. So he's carrying out his duty as a government official. He's discharging his duty. So can he be arrested without sanction? No, you need sanction to arrest an officer who is doing just his duty, right? So, is he likely to succeed? Ramesh wishes to challenge the arrest. When he is challenging the arrest, saying that there is no prior sanction, is it valid? Yes, it is valid. Why? Because he is doing his duty. Yes, since the act of rejection can be said to be an act done in discharge of his official functions, he has every right to do it. So he cannot be questioned on that aspect. Which of the following statements can logically be concluded in the light of laid down principles in the above paragraph? Accused cannot ask for conducting preliminary inquiry as a matter of right? Yes or no? In the passage, Chandrababu Naidu's request for a mini trial was rejected. So accused cannot ask for mini trials, right? Once an FIR, this is correct. Once an FIR is registered, the accused can move to the courts for quashing of the FIR. Yes or no? They can move to the court. Quashing of FIR is to be done only when there is no substance in the allegations. Yes or no? When can a quashing of FIR be done? When there is no substance. When there is no substance. What is the substance? There is no guilt proving material in the allegations. Then quashing of FIR can be done. So these three are correct. So we choose all of the above. Next passage. The Supreme Court held that once it has been proved that the accused has accepted any gratification other than prescribed remuneration, the court can raise the presumption against the accused. Under which act? Under Prevention of Corruption Act. This is applicable to all the public officials. Note this down, children. I accepted the gratification as a motive or reward under section 7. So presumption will be drawn against the public official. Matlab, he has to prove himself. Why? Because the court presumes that he has accepted the gratification as a reward for doing something improperly or dishonestly. The same presumption applies to demand of gratification. However, this presumption is rebuttable. What is the rebuttability of presumption? Which means the accused can prove it wrong. He can say that the gratification was not for some motive or reward. Right? The court clarified. That's what the court said, that this presumption is rebuttable. The Justice Bela Trivedi, Dipankar Datta were considering the case of appellant who was convicted under the PC Act by a special court. His appeal was dismissed. The case against him was that in 1993 he demanded 50,100 as a gratification while discharging his duty as a sub-registrar. So that was what? The case about the appellant was a public official. The appellant contended that the prosecution was required to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he had voluntarily accepted the money knowing it to be a bribe. What was the accused saying in this case? Accused a public official is saying the prosecution should prove beyond reasonable doubt for this presumption to be drawn against me. For a presumption to be drawn against the public official, what should the prosecution do? The prosecution should prove beyond reasonable doubt that you voluntarily accepted the money for gratification. Right? That's what the presumption under section 20 of the Prevention of Corruption Act says. Yes. However, the apex court noted that the accused in his explanation had accepted the receipt of the amount. The court held that since the prosecution proved beyond reasonable doubt that you have accepted gratification, right? So, only when the prosecution proves beyond the reasonable doubt that the court will draw the presumption against the accused, right? So the burden of proof is now with the accused, and he had failed to disprove the allegation. So, he failed to disprove the allegation. He failed to rebut the presumption in the first place. The court observed both the courts below have recorded the findings the prosecution has proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and there's a tainted currency by the accused. He's accepted it, and also the recovery of tainted currency from the government. So now the burden is with the accused. Did he fulfill the burden? No, he did not. The appellant failed to dispel the burden. Let's look at the questions. In a suburban land registration office, Rao, a government employee, is responsible for processing land transfer documents, right? So a property owner, Gupta, is there. He wishes to transfer the ownership of his land to his son. And Miss Rao was very high-level person, right? And he demanded a significant amount. He demanded some gratification from this Gupta to ensure a free transfer. It is alleged that Ms. Rao explicitly conveyed her requirement for illegal gratification during a private meeting. It was a private meeting. Upon considering the evidence on the record of the court, raised the presumption of guilt against Ms. Rao. The counsel of the Gupta, who was the victim, right, contends the presumption raised cannot be rebutted. Is the presumption rebuttable? Yes. So is the contention of Gupta right? No, because Gupta says that presumption cannot be rebutted, whereas the presumption can be rebutted. So the answer is no, his claim will not be sustained because the presumption can be rebutted. Option B. Next, in city's municipal office, Sharma is a government official responsible for granting business licenses. And there's a local restaurant owner. He applies for a license to operate his establishment. And then Mr. Sharma is abusing his position. He demanded bribe from Patel to expedite the licensing process and ensure a favorable outcome. Mr. Patel brings in an action against Sharma, alleging corrupt practices. Right? He demanded cash, corrupt practice being followed by him, but fails to prove beyond the reasonable doubt. So, for a presumption to be drawn, we observed that the proof should be beyond reasonable doubt, but he didn't do it. So, will now the presumption be drawn against the accused? No. Why? Because the prosecution failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt. Only then statutory presumption will be drawn against the accused. In light of the principles laid down, which of the following statements are correct? To raise a presumption, the prosecution just needs to merely establish a case. No, not mere establishing case. It needs to prove beyond reasonable doubt for a presumption to be drawn. Wrong. The presumption raised under the act is rebuttable. This is correct. It is rebuttable. So option B is the right answer. Next, Mr. Ashok Singh, a government officer responsible for granting license for liquor shops, is alleged to have done corrupt practices. Mr. Singh is accused of accepting gratification for granting licenses, right? It is alleged that he demanded money in cash from shop owners. Several owners provided audio evidence, right? Where Mr. Singh is demanding for money for license approvals. So, shop owners bought an action. Are they likely to succeed? Are they likely to succeed? Yes. But when are they likely to succeed? When the presumption is not rebutted, right? Yes, since he has engaged himself, this option is correct. Option A is correct. Option B says, but subject to the accused rebutting the presumption. Option B is giving an exception when it is completely true, right? Option A doesn't cover that. Option A doesn't cover the presumption matter, whereas option B is specific and says, only when the accused rebuts the presumption, you will win the case. Is it otherwise? Yes. Only when the accused fails to rebut, not rebuts. Only when the accused fails to rebut the presumption, right? You will win the case. So it is subjected to what now? It is subjected to rebutting the presumption. If the accused successfully rebuts, then what? If the accused successfully rebuts the presumption against him, he will win the case. But if he fails, you will win the case. So yes, but subject to the accused rebutting the presumption is now the right answer. Although A is also right. You're choosing B because this is the condition that should be followed as per the author, because the author places a lot of stress on the presumption. That's also one of the reasons. Next, the Supreme Court, comprising the bench of Sanjeev Khanna, M.M. Sundaresh, has held that by setting an arbitral award for being violative of the act must be considered the arbitrator is empowered to interpret the contract terms reasonably. There should be reasonable interpretation. It cannot be unreasonable, right? But arbitrator's interpretation cannot be a ground for setting aside an award. Just because the arbitrator is not interpreting properly, you cannot use that ground to set aside an award. This award is just like a judgment, right? Since the construction of contract terms is finally for the arbitrator to decide, arbitrator is the one who should construct the contract. It is not you or the other party. So you cannot challenge in the court saying that arbitrator has not interpreted correctly. Under this section, the award can only be set aside if it is interpreted in a manner that no fair-minded reasonable person would do. So it should be so unreasonable for the award to be set aside. As long it is not so unreasonable, it is not going to be set aside, right? The act says that the arbitral tribunal to decide cases as per terms of the contract, right? The issue before the court now was to do what? The extent of court interference. The court should interfere or it should not interfere is the question. And the act says that the grounds upon which the arbitral award can be set aside by the court. So now the answer is there in the act itself. When should the court interfere? The answer is there in the act itself. First one is when the award is so unreasonable to a reasonable man. Second reason, when it is against the public policy of the country. What is a public policy? Any law. If it is violating any law of the country, then that award can be set aside. Not any country. Country of the person who entered into that contract. Right? Because arbitration will arise from a contract, right? Whoever are the parties to the arbitration, their country law should not be violated. If they are violated, then it is liable for setting aside. Two reasons. Unreasonable, violation of public policy. These are two grounds when arbitral award can be set aside. This can be seen in the passage. Now let's look at the questions. Company A had ordered equipment from Y for offshore explanation. They asked for damages, right? And then there was arbitration because there were some disputes. The arbitral tribunal rejected the defense and said, you prove the financial losses now. Only then we'll grant an award. When company could not provide such evidence, the tribunal going against the substantive law of the country, matlab public policy has been violated. Is it a ground for setting aside the award? Yes. So now, when A challenges the validity of the award, will A succeed? Yes, because his public policy has been violated. So yes, so it is against the public policy, right? Because it is against the substantive law of the country. It is violative of the public policy. Next, in a commercial dispute between a country, between a company A and B over failure to fulfill contractual obligation involving goods, parties, they have entered into arbitration, right? But company B cannot provide evidence. So there is no evidence in defense of B. There is no good evidence. But still, the arbitral tribunal issued an award in favor of company A, affirming company's B breach of the contract. Company B decided to challenge the award in the domestic court, contending the award was unjust, primarily due to its reliance on minimal evidence. So is there a bias? Can you say there is bias? Is bias a ground for setting aside an award? No, bias is not a ground for setting aside an award. No, since an award cannot be regarded invalid merely for being passed on little or no evidence. It is in the discretion of the arbitrator or the arbitral tribunal. So it cannot set aside on that ground of evidentiary, because it is the arbitral tribunal to see how they will take evidence, right? Next, you can bring a question in this. Ma'am, then this bias shows that it is unreasonable, right? Because reasonability is also a ground. The answer to that would be, although reasonability is a ground, what are these arguments saying? The argument says about the bias, not about the reasonableness. They are both two different concepts, right? So if it says reasonability, then we'll have to think about the answer, but it says bias, right? Bias is not a ground as per the passage. Next, in a dispute between software development firm company X and its client Y had an arbitration clause. So it became evident that company X failed to meet the delivery deadlines. And now the company Y challenges it. How does the arbitrator interpret? In a manner that favors company X, ignoring the glaring breaches. There were glaring breaches. Matlab, a reasonable man could foresee those breaches, but still the arbitrator ignored them, which means that a reasonableness principle is violated here. Agreed with the interpretation, company Y is challenged. Are they likely to succeed? Company Y now says, you have favored company X. You are unreasonable here. Why? Because there are glaring breaches. Is there a validity in company Y's claim? Will they succeed? Yes, because any fair-minded person would not ignore glaring breaches. That's a fair mind. Reasonability is also a test. Now let's look at the assertion. As a general rule, arbitrator's interpretation cannot be a ground for setting aside an award. Yes or no? Arbitrator can interpret anyhow except for when it is unreasonable. He can interpret it anyhow with regards to the evidence, and that cannot be a ground for setting aside an award. That is correct. Now let's look at the reason why it is that rule. An award can only be set aside if the arbitrator interprets in a manner as no fair-minded reasonable person would do. Right? This interpretation that is there in the assertion has been explained in the reason, which is why both A and R are true and R is correct explanation of A. So the answer is option A. Yeah, we are done with the mock analysis. See you in the next video. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and today we'll be doing the mock analysis for the English section of mock 2620. So let's start. Okay, though. So the first passage was given from Scoop Whoop, and our next passage, it was from Times of India. Okay, this was given from a book basically. Next, our third passage was given from Times of India, an article from Times of India. Same with our fourth passage. So basically we have 4 passages in the CLAT for English section at least, right? So one was from Scoop Whoop, and next was an excerpt from a book, next Times of India, and the fourth one is Hindu. So it's like in CLAT at least you get passages covered from every fashion, okay? So try to get yourself convenient with all type of passages, be it science, be it business, be it literature, and the basic level of everything. It could be economics, it could be philosophy, it could be even liberal arts. You can get passages from any type, okay, or passages of any type. So get yourself convenient with those type of passages, that okay, I can read these passages and my mind is not it's not feeling a bit difficult while reading these passages. So let's start with our questions. Okay, our first question. Based on the passage, what can be inferred about the author? So our first question is about inference. What can be inferred about the author's view on the relationship between position in a company? So here, before reading any passage or before solving any passage in the exam, the first thing would be you should complete all the questions of a passage. The 6 questions of a passage, you should answer all of them in 6 minutes. That is your basic thumb rule, right? And next, read the questions, not the options, but just read the questions. What is going on in the question? So in this question, okay, based on the passage, you don't need this part of the question. So this is about inference type. Next, they're asking you about the relationship between position in a company and the likelihood of making mistakes. So these are the keywords. Before you reading the passage, if you read the questions, you'll get to know what are the keywords, what are the paper makers or people who are putting you the test, what are they trying to find from you from the passage at least. So next, what rationale does the author provide to explain why interns are mistakenly blamed for errors? So just read the questions, go back to the passage. So we'll look at from where in the passage should we look for the answer for the first question. So the first question, it is given here. I checked everything I did at least 3 times before sending. So this is about, of course, interns. So this is an intern speaking, okay? I checked everything I did at least 3 times before sending. It was further reviewed twice. The chances of an error going up drop considerably in this situation because it was reviewed many times. That is common sense. Next, the number of people reviewing one's work reduces as they move up the ladder. So here reviewing reduces as one moves up the ladder. Maybe from intern, when you get to full-time position, maybe your work gets reviewed once. After that, if you get into a managerial position, your work maybe only be reviewed by you. So reviewing chances become 0. That is what is being given here, making them more susceptible to odd mistakes. So the intern here is saying that okay, because as we move up the ladder in positions, the number of reviews gets reduced. So we have a chance of making more errors. So the options here given are: higher level employees are more likely to make mistakes due to less scrutiny. Yes, because of less examination, because of less reviews, higher level of people or people who are at the up of the ladder, they can make more mistakes. That is what is given in the passage. So this will directly be our answer. Okay, so the second question, if you want, we'll look at the other options also. Interns are inherently more careful than, it is not inherently, because inherently is like something that is there within you, something that is your inherent quality that every intern has. No, that is not there. Interns, they try to be careful because they are normally under more scrutiny, more examination, because they are still trying to maintain their job, right? So this option won't come. Option C, interns are more likely to make mistakes because they are less experienced. No, this is not the author's view. So because of that reason, at least you eliminate option C. Option D, higher level employees are less likely. No, it's not less likely. This is exactly opposite to the passage. So you will eliminate option D. And our answer at least is option A in first question. So the second one, what rationale does the author provide to explain why interns are often mistakenly blamed for errors? So what is the explanation that the author is trying to give, that they are asking you at least? So here, masses tend to make associations, masses as in society in general, between people's salaries and abilities. So this is common sense. An intern usually has less salary, so people think that okay, their ability to do a task is less. This is the opinion of masses. That is what the author is giving you. That's another big fallacy. A big fallacy here is a mistaken belief that people generally have about the interns' abilities to do their work. And I have a good example to prove this. The author gives us the example also. If you read this, that is there clearly, okay? So the options, let's go to the options. Interns are usually less competent members of team. The author here never says that they are less competent, so no. People believe that higher paid employees are incapable of mistakes. So here the author gave that, okay, this is what masses believe, because the higher level people or people at the top of the ladder, they get more salary. So people think that, okay, they have more abilities. That is what the author is trying to say, right? So this is our answer. Option B for this question at least is correct. Okay, option C. Interns are more visible in an organization, making them easy targets. No, because the author here is trying to tell you that why are interns mistakenly blamed for errors. So that is not the reason. The hierarchical structure of a company places blame on the lowest level. No. Question 3. According to the passage, which of the following statements best encapsulates, okay, they're asking you which of the following statements best encapsulates the author's perspective on the relationship between salary and an employee's responsibilities. That we have already seen, right? That, okay, people believe at least that people's salaries and abilities, they are correlated. So that is what is given here also in the passage. My salary is directly proportional to my position and has absolutely nothing to do with my capabilities. I have the same work, same hours, just more money. Okay. So let's look at the options for the third question. Higher salaries always correlate with increased responsibilities and capabilities. No. Intern salary reflects their capabilities accurately. This accurately. Because of this, you eliminate the option. And as for option C, there is often a disparity between salary and actual job responsibilities. That was what was given, right? That was what was the author's opinion also, because intern salary is less, that does not mean they have less capabilities and all. So this is our answer in option C for question 3. Full-time employees have significantly more responsibilities than interns. Again, it nullifies the argument. So not option D. Let's look at the fourth question. How does Priya's experience as described in the passage challenge the traditional view? Okay, so they gave Priya, right? So skim through the passage, directly look at the word where Priya is, at least where the author is talking about her example. How does she challenge, or how does her experience challenge the traditional view of employee capability and compensation? So let's look at where her example is given by the author, at least. Here it's given. Priya, who bagged a job through her internship 2 months ago, shares that even she was offered a full-time job, her pay was increased considerably. Meanwhile, her duties her pay was increased. Meanwhile, her duties effectively remain the same. With a smaller portion comes great responsibility. See, even though her salary was increased, her duties did not increase considerably. That was what the author. Okay, so let's look at the options for fourth question. It shows that interns often receive high salaries, then their capabilities justify. No. Option B illustrates that there is not always a direct correlation between an employee's pay and their actual job or responsibilities. This is correct because there is no direct correlation, at least always. No. In option C, they gave you about the capability of full-time interns, full-time employees more than interns. That was not discussed, at least in the passage, so no. And as for option D, it reveals that temporary employees are given responsibilities that exceed their capabilities. Not at all related again. Question 5. What does the author mean by the phrase, the biggest is the freedom of constructing a narrative? So, let's directly go where this is given in the passage. Okay, it's given here. The blame rarely lands on hotshots because among the many privileges of power, hotshots here are people who are at the top of the ladder, okay? The biggest is the freedom of constructing a narrative. It's like they can construct their own narrative that masses believe or masses can believe that they have the power of that, and not interns, people who are generally at the least of the ladder. We have collectively come to believe that people at a certain level of professional success are immune to making mistakes because they act like that. It's not that they don't make mistakes according to the author's view. It's that, okay, because the way they carry themselves, it seems that they don't make mistakes. Okay. Question 5. The ability to shape others' perceptions to one's advantage, that is what is like, okay, I can construct a narrative that the people at the top have an advantage of. That is what is given. The privilege to control the media, it's not related to the passage, so no. The power to tell compelling stories, it's not compelling stories, so no. The liberty to freely express one's opinion, not related again, so answer is A. Sixth question. What insight does the author provide regarding the scrutiny faced by scrutiny? Basically is like they're under constant examination by people above them, faced by interns compared to that of higher level employees. Okay, so it's given in the last passage that, okay, I checked everything at least 3 times and it was further reviewed twice, the chances of an error. Okay, this thing that is given in the last passage, as we have discussed in the starting of our passage, that okay, their work is reviewed more considerably at to those of people that are above them. So let's look at the options. Interns are subject to the same level of scrutiny as higher level employees. This is directly false because of same level, at least you eliminate this option. And as for option B, higher level employees are more scrutinized than interns due to their seniority. This is exact opposite, at least to what was given in the passage, because they are not more scrutinized, it's like they are less scrutinized because of their seniority, right? So you eliminate option A, you eliminate option B. And as for option C, interns face more scrutiny, reducing the likelihood of their mistakes going unnoticed. Yeah, because they are being examined more, right? So this is our answer. Scrutiny levels are consistent across all employee levels. They're not consistent, same levels consistent, because of the same reason you eliminate option A, you eliminate option D also. So our answer for this is passage C. Sorry, option C. So it was easy. The passage was very easy, and this you could have easily completed in 5 minutes at least. So let's go to our second passage. Okay. What does the word protocol most likely mean in the context? Okay, it's given here. I was wondering if this would be the right time to demand a lawyer. Aren't they supposed to offer me one? I'm rusty on this protocol. So here the author says that, at least the person who is narrating this, he says that, okay, isn't this the time that you provide me a lawyer? Because I don't know exactly what the protocol is or what the general procedure is according to the person speaking. So let's look at the options. So protocol here, a sequence of events, no. A type of communication, again, no. An official procedure or system of rules. That is what we can infer according, at least from the passage. So option D is our correct answer. What is the most likely reason the protagonist hesitates to ask for a lawyer? He says that, right? I am rusty on this protocol. What does that mean? The protagonist is confident. Rusty here is that, okay, I don't know what the official procedure is. I don't know what the official, the system of rules is. So you have to get me a lawyer by now, right? He was telling in that way. So he's not confident. Yes, he is unsure, right? So 8th option is B. Okay, our 9th question. Based on the detective's behavior, what can be inferred about his confidence in the protagonist's guilt? Okay, so here, based on detective's behavior, what can you at least know about about his confidence in protagonist's guilt? Maybe protagonist here is a person who told our before dialogue. Okay, so for 9th question, okay, he's wondering if he's got enough to snap those cuffs on my wrist yet. He here is the detective. He's wondering if he's got enough to snap those cuffs on my wrist yet. My here is the protagonist, okay? He isn't unsure. If he were sure, he would have done it already. So he's not putting the handcuffs directly on my wrist yet. So he's not sure whether I have did the crime or not. That is what the protagonist is telling, right? So 9th question, let's look at the options. He's unsure and seeking more evidence. That is directly the answer because he is not still placing cuffs on my hand, so he is unsure. He believes the protagonist is innocent but wants to be thorough. That won't be because it doesn't tell that, okay, he's innocent. He is indifferent in following procedure without much interest. Again, no. He's completely convinced of the protagonist's guilt. If he was completely convinced, he would have put the handcuffs, right? So for question 9 at least, the answer is A. Based on the narrator's thoughts and actions, the narrator, our protagonist's thoughts and actions, which of the following is most likely true? Let's look at the passage again. So it is there here. I am not stupid. I know exactly what he wants me to say. I did it. So the protagonist here is telling you that, okay, the detective wants me to at least confide that I did the mistake. That I am guilty, take me away. Instead, I lean back against the sofa. That's it. That's everything I know. That, okay, he is not giving in. The detective wants him to give in, wants him to confide in his crime. Okay, so question 10. The narrator has already confessed to the crime. No, he did not confess, right? The narrator is trying to avoid giving away any incriminating details. Yeah, this is correct because he is trying to avoid giving any details related to the crime, right? The narrator is confident. He is not confident because he's still not sure. He is not sure. The detective is not sure. Both at least are not confident in their perspective. The narrator is unaware of why the police are questioning them. Not related. So answer is B. What does the protagonist's interaction with Detective Connors? Okay, our previous sentence that we looked at, that can comfort this question also. The interaction with the detective suggests about his or her state of mind. So they're asking you basically, you have looked at the interaction between the protagonist and the detective, right? So from their interaction, what would you know about the state of mind of the protagonist, not about the detective? So here he is not anxious and nervous. If he was, or if he were anxious and nervous, he would have confided in the crime, even he did not, or even that something which he has not done, right? So this won't be your answer. He was not calm and cooperative. No, because it's like, this is like two opposite sides. Extremely anxious, extremely calm. The two opposite sides we can rule out because that even the detective is unsure, even the protagonist is unsure. So no, something middle ground. He was being defensive and wary. Yes, he was being defensive. That was directly you can infer. He was being very wary here is something cautious. He was cautious because he is not confiding into his crime. Indifferent again, no. So the answer is C. Okay, so the last question for the second passage. What can be inferred about the younger officer's discovery upstairs from his reaction and dialogue? Okay, so they're asking you what are you able to infer about what the younger officer discovered upstairs from his reaction, from his dialogue. So let's look at where the supporting clause is in the passage. It is there here. His unlined face is pale, corners. The younger officer says, "You gotta come up here now. You gotta see what's up there." Even from the bottom of the stairs, I can see his Adam's apple bobbing. You won't believe it. So that is what is given, right? So he was pale, right? He found additional evidence. No, nothing additional. He discovered something that greatly complicates the case. Yes, because see, his face turned pale, and so you can understand that the intensity of the situation they are trying to tell you, at least, that his Adam's apple was even bobbing out. So he found another dead body in the attic. No. He realized that the initial evidence was a false lead. We don't know if it was a false lead or not, so it is option B. So we're done with both the passages. Let's go to our third passage. So this is an article from the Times of India. Okay, so let's see our 13th question. Let's state the main argument of the passage. See, the one thing, you don't need to look at the passage completely because they're asking you the main argument, okay? So the main argument is the crux of the passage, right? So the crux, it can be found here, that okay, past failures, they purify. Just look at the headings because that is at least what is given in this passage, right? Okay, past failures, they again purify that, okay, even when you fail, you should not give in. You should be persistent because perseverance, it pays. Next, pressure proof yourself. All these combine and it gives you that, okay. Let's look at the options. Cricket matches are merely a form of entertainment. No. Failure, perseverance, pressure, all this is being discussed that, okay, from cricket, you will learn life lessons of these three. That is what is being covered in the entire passage, right? So this was an easy question. So 13th is D. Which of the following statements would the author most likely agree with based on the passage? So based on the passage, you have read the entire passage. So from the statements, which statement would the author most likely agree with? So here, let's look at the statements. Okay, Suryakumar Yadav used all his energy, presence of mind, focus and agility to take a historic catch that sealed India's victory. We can withstand all kinds of pressures and perform well if we focus all our energy only on the present, detaching ourselves from all the past happenings as well as stonewalling all shards of future anxiety. It's like he's telling you that, okay, focus on the present, leave both the past and the future so that you'll perform very well. This is an example that, okay, you can do well if you focus only on the present. So the option is okay, let's look which of the options according to the passage would the author agree on. Overthinking about critics can improve performance in the long run. This is what the author said to eliminate, right? That you should not overthink. The ability to perform under pressure is as important as skill in preparation. That is what the author gave you, that okay, you have to be calm at least even when you're under pressure. Historical references like the Bhagavad Gita are outdated for modern sports motivation. No. Perseverance without external validation has little value. Here nothing is given at least about the external validation, so we eliminate this. And the answer here is option B. Question 15. Why does the author reference Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Vasisht in the context of perseverance? So again, why did the author give you that? It's given here. Okay, Krishna here, he talks about this attitude in Bhagavad Gita that, okay, when he asks a disheartened and depressed Arjun to pick up his bow and fight and do his karma as a warrior, for that is a path to glory. Okay, don't think about the future consequences at least, and at least do your work. That is what is being said there. Sage Vasisht 2 glorifies Purusharth, human effort. Okay, that, okay, you have to do your effort no matter what. That is what is being said there. So let's look at the options. First option, to illustrate this one. To illustrate that perseverance is a universally valued principle supported by ancient wisdom, yes. They both said that, okay, be patient and do what you have to do, the result will come in. And option B, to contrast modern and ancient approaches to perseverance, because of the word contrast, at least contrast is opposite to what we are following now and what was said before. So because of that, you eliminate. Option C, to highlight the spiritual aspects of playing cricket. This is not at all related. Option D, to emphasize the historical significance of perseverance in different cultures. Because of this, you eliminate. Again, 15th is option A. Question 16. What does the word Ganbari Masu most closely mean in the context of passage? So search for this word quickly in the passage. The Japanese have a word, it's given here. The Japanese have a word for this, Ganbari Masu, which means not stopping. It's like not giving up until the objective has been reached. It stands for perseverance along with patience. It's like don't give up, be consistent and all, and Japanese have a term for this, and that is that. So option A, giving up easily. No. Striving with perseverance and patience, yes. Focusing on past mistakes, again, if you focus on the past, how can you concentrate on the present? So this is not the answer. Seeking immediate results, again, no. 17th question. The passage states, criticism that failure brings can help in 2 ways. It can reveal, okay, so the line is already given, you don't need to go back to the passage at least. Okay, criticism that failure brings can help in 2 ways. How? It can reveal your imperfections and offer opportunities for purification. So what implicit assumption? Implicit assumption here means that, okay, what is the indirect assumption? Something which is not being told directly. What is that? The author is making about the role of criticism in personal development. So criticism always leads to negative outcomes. It is no because offer opportunities, right? So no. Criticism is unnecessary for personal growth, again no, because it provides you opportunities so that you can grow, right? Individuals are capable of using criticism constructively to improve themselves. Here constructively you can take from this word, at least because of purification, that okay, you can grow in whichever field you are in. So option is C. Criticism is a form of personal attack that should be avoided, not at all related. So the answer here for 17 is C. So let's look at our last question from the third passage. In the passage, the author references both Krishna's advice to Arjun. We have discussed these lines already, right? That Krishna's advice to Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita and sage Vasisht's teachings in Yoga Vasisht. What can be inferred about the author's perspective on the relationship between ancient wisdom and modern challenges? Okay, so they told you that, okay, these both are not in contrast, but they are in the same alignment, right? Because of outdated, irrelevant, you eliminate option A. Because of they required completely new approaches, distinct, so you eliminate this. Ancient wisdom is only relevant to those who practice traditional lifestyles. It's not only limited to some people. It's like, okay, it pertains or it is related to almost everyone. That is what is told, right, in the passage at least. So you will eliminate option A, B and C. And as for option D, ancient wisdom provides timeless principles that are applicable to modern challenges. Yes, that is what is given. So the answer is option D. Okay, so we are done with 3 passages and the last passage. Okay, so this passage again was taken from the Hindu. So let's look at the question. What does the author believe? Sorry, why does the author believe the revival of the case against Arundhati Roy and Sheikh Shokawat Hussain is ill-motivated? So why do you think that, okay, why are we reviving this case, and why the intentions against or intentions related to this case, why are they not pure, why are they ill? So it is given directly here that, okay, it is given here. The resurrection of this old case is an unfortunate instance of ill-motivated prosecution. The only possible explanation for the revival of this case, it was registered here, is that the present regime or the present people who are there now has found it expedient only now to do so, that okay, they have found that they can do it only now. And next, as part of its continuing crackdown on dissenters and outspoken critics. So that is what is directly given. So our option is D. And as for question 20, what does the author imply by stating the 8-month gap between the two sanction orders is inexplicable? Why is that? So let's look at where that answer is there, at least in our passage. The 8-month gap between the two sanction orders is inexplicable. Why is that? Let's look. As the same material would have been placed before the sanctioning authority, right? So that is what is given. The same evidence, the same material, right? So our option is B. What does the author imply about the role of the Metropolitan Magistrate in the prosecution process? What does the author imply about the role of? Okay, the role of this in the prosecution process, what is that? Metropolitan Magistrate, right? So where did they give you that? It's given here. However, on November 27, 2010, the Metropolitan Magistrate rejected the police stand. Okay, they rejected the police stand and directed registration of a first information report. They directed an FIR basically. The FIR, it included all these. Okay, so let's look at our options. So they did both. They rejected the police stand and they directed a registration of an FIR. So the magistrate was biased. It was biased against the defendants? No, because that was not given anywhere. The magistrate was compelled by new evidence to prosecute. Nothing is given about the biasness or the new evidence to eliminate both of these options. The magistrate overruled the police's reluctance to prosecute. That was given, right? They rejected, so they overruled. So our answer is option C. Okay, the 22nd question. Why does the author question whether the speeches made at the conference amounted to unlawful activity under the UAPA? Speeches made at the conference may have contained imputations about the status of Kashmir, but it is doubtful if a mere speech, it's like if just a speech in the absence of a call to arms or instigation of violence would amount to unlawful activity under UAPA. That is what is given, right? Yes. So, question 22. The speeches included explicit threat to violence, or they told you that they did not include because just a speech can't instigate people, right? So this is not given. The UAPA clearly defines any form of dissent as unlawful. No. Because of this, the speeches lacked a call to arms or instigation of violence. So our answer for question 22 at least is option C. Okay, so let's look at question 23. What is the author's stance on the approach of the new coalition regime towards dissenting views? Okay, what is author's stand? Author's stand on this approach at least is what the question being asked. So they're asking about the new coalition government or the regime, right? The new coalition regime should from the earlier era's obsession with stamping out dissenting and put an end to its propensity to criminalize speeches. That is what is given. So it should move away from criminalizing dissenting views. Direct answer again. The last question. What is the author's reference to the abrogation of Jammu and Kashmir special status in 2019? Okay. Author gave us something in the passage related to abrogation of Jammu and Kashmir's special status in 2019. What does it tell us about the relevance of speeches made in 2010? Okay. Yeah, here it is given. In any case, much has changed in the ground situation, especially in the aftermath of the abrogation of Jammu and Kashmir's special status in 2019. The author is talking about this only, right? And its division into two union territories. After that, we already saw about the coalition regime, right? That it was criminalizing the dissenting views. Okay, so our options. The speeches are more change in status. No, because here it is mostly talking about the two union territories, right? So the geopolitical context is given here. That is what is given at least only in option D. So this is our answer for question 24. So this was an easy to medium level paper, and any score above 20 is a good score, and any score above 22 is a great score. Thank you. I at least believe I have added some value to this session. All the best.
Welcome to Abhyaas Law Prep. So today we are going to deal with the mock analysis of 2620, test number 2620, the critical reasoning part. We also refer to it as the logical reasoning part. So logical reasoning, as you know, it will have passage followed by questions, and it will be you will be tested of the concepts like assumption, conclusion, strengthening and weakening, assertion and reason, right? So all these things, logical flaws, they are all tested in this particular section. So we'll see one passage after another. So first passage in logical reasoning section, also referred to as CR. So deadlines, related to deadlines, time-bound goals and all these things. Deadlines are not merely time-bound goals imposed on individuals for the completion of tasks. They serve as one of the most powerful tools that shape our behavior and influence our habits, both positively and negatively. So the passage follows this particular flow. So you can go through this passage. This tendency is known as deadline effect. As a result, the time constraints imposed by deadlines lead to development of certain work habits. All these things they are given. So deadlines can either be catalyst for productive balanced work habits or a source of chronic stress and disorganization. So the view of author is two-way. Ultimately, it is the approach to deadlines that will determine whether they promote healthy habits or reinforce counterproductive patterns. So this is the passage. So passage is not strictly taking any one particular stand. They are the author is presenting both the views regarding how the deadline concept can be both be beneficial, at the same time be counterproductive. Let's see the questions. See, first thing is that you need to understand the essence of the passage. Word by word understanding, line by line understanding. If you are able to do it within the given time, that's best. But if not, at least you should be able to understand the stand taken by the author in the given passage. So now, first question, 85th. What can be inferred about the relationship between deadlines and an individual's work habits? So this is the question. What can be inferred? See, inference is educated guess that you can make, a calculated guess that we can make out of the given content with regarding what the author is thinking. Right, a statement is made, from that what you derive as an educated guess is the thing we call it as inference. So what can be inferred about the relationship between deadlines and an individual's work habits? So let's see the options. While deadlines may be initially instill urgency and productivity, they can also inadvertently promote procrastination by encouraging individuals to prioritize tasks only when pressure becomes unbearable, ultimately undermining the long-term habit formation. So this is one thing. Close. Let's see other options. Deadlines create a continuous cycle of heightened focus and efficiency that culminates in proactive work habits. So here it is totally positive in nature. Next, deadlines have little or to no effect in shaping work habits, as people are largely driven by intrinsic motivation. So this takes a completely different view. This takes a totally positive view. This takes a totally indifferent, or you can say even negative view with regarding deadlines. Next, deadlines primarily cause stress and burnout, making them ineffective in promoting. So totally negative view is being taken. We have already seen in the passage that author is not with a positive or negative view with regarding deadline concept. He is presenting us both the views. We have seen it in the last lines and all that. So A option, as we have seen just now, A clearly presents that balanced view. While deadlines may initially instill urgency and productivity, they can also inadvertently promote procrastination by encouraging individuals to prioritize work only when deadlines are given and stress is imposed upon them. So both the dimensions are presented in A option perfectly. So that makes this the perfect educated guess, inference. Okay. So this is how you need to approach it. Understand the essence and then pick the option as per the content. Now, next, which one of the following most strongly? You can read the explanation also here. We provide explanation too. The passage discusses how deadlines create urgency, but this urgency often leads to procrastination thing, which prevents formation of sustainable work habits. So only when stress is imposed, they will work, otherwise they don't. Such culture. You got it right? So let's see the other questions. Which of the following most strongly supports the idea that deadlines can contribute to the formation of detrimental work habits? So detrimental work habits is a negative thing. So the question wants you to pick the option that provides the negative connotation, or you can say negative externalities related to the concept of deadlines. Okay, so you need to pick something that shows deadlines in a negative line. Now, let's look at the options. Passage highlights that the structure imposed by deadlines to work in bursts, causing periods of intense activity that contribute to steady build-up of stress, eventually leading to decrease in overall productivity and well-being. No, passage has never taken that downhill approach. Okay, so this says that passage is of the opinion key ultimately deadlines are going to be following that steep negative curve. No. The passage implies that the individuals who effectively manage deadlines develop a high degree of focus and discipline, building proactive work habits that ensure steady. Totally positive dimension? No, it's not the case. Both are extreme in a way. Next, according to passage, deadlines foster an adaptive working style that allows individuals to organize their tasks, develop better time management. Again, totally positive view. No. So the passage clearly establishes that constant pressure of looming deadlines fosters a mindset of procrastination and reactive work approach, preventing the development of consistent long-term productivity habits. Yes, the problem with deadlines is that constantly if you impose deadlines, they create this sense that we will do work only when there is a deadline and when it is strictly enforced. Otherwise, we will not do that work. That's how it is detrimental. It creates detrimental work habits. This is clearly explained in the passage. In the last lines, we have already seen. So that makes D the answer. So you can read the explanation. How constant deadline pressures lead to procrastination and stress. Okay, now. 87th. Which of the following assumptions is made in the passage about the role of deadlines in shaping work habits? Okay, about the role of deadlines. So assumption is the belief with which someone is saying or something like that. Now, let's look at the options. People when faced with deadlines will naturally experience increased stress, leading them to develop reactive habits such as procrastination, last minute work, which eventually become ingrained over a period of time. Yes, A is the answer. We need not check the other options. If you want to, you can go through them. Is the inherent consequence of deadlines. Individuals will always exhibit. No, this is all extreme. Always is the extreme term. Go by the keywords. Always, everyone, they are the keywords, extreme terms. When the passage is with the balanced view, then eliminate options which have got extreme viewpoints. So deadlines, sole external motivator for work habits, no. Sole is only, no, not at all. Assumes that deadlines when effectively managed will always lead to positive work habits, no. So he is not totally positive. That makes A the answer. We have seen same content here. You can check it. 88th. Which of the following would most strengthen the argument that deadlines can foster productive, balanced work habits? Okay. Most strengthen the argument that deadlines are good. Okay. So pick anything that shows the deadlines in a positive fashion. Pick that such an option. Data showing that individuals who do not experience the pressure of deadlines tend to procrastinate more, completing tasks last minute, leading to inefficient and hasty work habits that undermine quality. So this is one thing, but it is a bit extreme in its tone and all that. Let's see. If the other options are bad, then we can go with it. Next. Evidence suggesting that people who work without any external deadlines develop better time management skills? Not at all. So this is like too idealistic scenario, obviously. Next, research indicating that individuals who work under constant pressure, tight deadlines tend to have higher level of anxiety, leading them to prioritize speed over quality. This actually weakens. It doesn't strengthen. The demand of the question is for strengthening. Next, a study showing that individuals who set smaller manageable deadlines and break tasks into incremental goals experience reduced stress, greater focus, and consistent progress towards long-term objectives. Yes. So this presents the logical explanation of why deadlines are good. And you are expected to pick an option that shows the deadlines in a positive fashion. So this does that task. So that individuals who set smaller manageable deadlines and divide the work in and show incremental progress, they will be consistently progressing with regarding their long-term objectives. So D clearly encapsulates the strengthening dimension of the so-called deadline concept. Next. Which one of the following would most challenge the central argument that deadlines shape work habits in predominantly negative way? So you need to pick an option that shows the things in a positive fashion. So report showing deadlines are largely irrelevant? No. So irrelevant means they are showing it in a negative fashion. So this is not our answer. Research indicating with no deadlines perform worse in terms? No. This is a bit extreme. Next. A study showing that deadlines which effectively balanced with proper planning and foresight help individuals focus their energy, reduce anxiety, complete tasks and all that. So as we have already discussed, you need to pick an option that would show the deadlines again in a positive fashion. So answer is C. Okay. The D again shows them in a negative fashion, that deadlines foster burnout, sleep deprivation and all that. So that is negative thing. So C. So this would challenge central argument by demonstrating that deadlines can have positive effects. Okay, so positive thing you need to pick up. Understand the demand of the question very clearly. That solves entire issue. Now, critical next passage. So questions for 90 to 94 will be from this passage. Critical thinking forms the bedrock of scientific inquiry, distinguishing robust evidence-based conclusions from speculation to conjecture as its essence. So you can go through this passage. For example, correlation between two variables. A critical thinker probes deeper to determine whether the relationship is causal. So all these things, go through the passage clearly and understand the standing. In the words of Carl Sagan, science is a way of thinking much more than it is a body of knowledge. So that is important line for us. Critical thinking ensures that this way of thinking remains sharp, adaptable and true to its purpose. Okay. Now, so based on the passage, which of the following can be inferred about the relationship between the skepticism and progress in science? Can be inferred about the relationship. So relationship is kind of positive. So is inherently antagonistic to progress? No, obviously not. Without having doubt, you can't progress. So skepticism is inherently antagonistic to progress? Wrong. That itself eliminates the option. Next, while skepticism challenges established norms, it rarely plays a role. No, it plays a role consistently, right? So rarely plays a role is the key thing here that makes it get eliminated. Next, C. Progress in science is predominantly driven by breakthroughs that require abandoning skepticism. No, you need to keep the skepticism with you. Right? You need to be doubtful. Why this, why that and all that. Next, the balance between skepticism and openness is crucial. as excessive doubt can hinder innovation while blind acceptance may propagate errors. Yes, this is the thing. So balance between the skepticism and openness is crucial. You should be doubtful, at the same time you should be open to accept ideas, new things and all that. Both when they go together, then scientific progress can happen. Excessive doubt can hinder innovation. If you doubt everything, then you can't innovate anything. You won't believe even in your own thought process, even in your own invention. So excessive doubt is wrong. At the same time, blind acceptance may propagate errors. So you should not accept anything blindly, believing any theory or something like that. So D perfectly captures. Next. 91. Which of the following, if true, would most strengthen the argument that education systems need to focus more on critical thinking? Let's see. So critical thinking, why it is important, supporting argument. Research has shown that students trained in critical thinking skills perform significantly better in interdisciplinary fields across these subjects than those taught through traditional rote learning. Rote learning, just memorizing the things. Traditional rote learning. So A is perfect, it covers everything. Why this is important and how lack of it would lead to certain things. So that makes A the answer. So if you want to check the other options, you can check. Survey found students from rote learning consistently outperform. No, obviously wrong. Rote learning is a negative thing. So how can this be true? So it is false. Agree to credit is innate skill and that cannot be effectively taught. No, it can be effectively taught. Critical thinking. Next, advances in artificial have rendered traditional memorization, making the only relevant skill? No, obviously not. You need to memorize certain things, obviously. So A is the perfect answer. So read the explanation part. I am not reading the explanation part because it is given there. So it would be necessary. Next. 92. Which assumption is implicit in the author's argument about the risks of increasing specialization in scientific disciplines? Risks of increasing specialization in scientific disciplines. Implicit. Implicit means not openly present, but you need to understand it. Specialization leads to disregard for ethical consideration, which is detrimental in scientific progress. Yeah, a serious this thing. Let's see other option. Increasing complexity of scientific problems requires that researchers focus exclusively on their chosen fields to produce effective solutions. Yes, this is also somewhat fine. Next, broad interdisciplinary knowledge is essential for meaningful scientific progress, which narrow specialization cannot achieve. Yes. So for certain things to be understood, to be innovated and all that, you need broad interdisciplinary knowledge across the spectrum. So you can't be a specialist in a subject and that too in a subpart of a subject that makes other subjects relevant in your mind. You think, okay, only my thing is important and all that. So that makes interdisciplinary knowledge weak and leading to lack of innovation that in areas that require broad interdisciplinary knowledge. So C is the answer. So often fail to understand of their findings, limiting their contribution. No. So this is not the thing. This is after effect. But before that itself, it becomes a challenge even at the stage of inventing or innovating a certain thing. So C is the answer. Next. Which of the following titles most accurately capture the central discussion of the passage without being overly explicit? So it is not overly explicit, but it discusses it accurately captures the central discussion of the passage. Answer is D. Beyond certainty, the dynamics of thought in scientific discovery. This is the thing. If you look at the other options, the tension between rigidity and flexibility in scientific, rethinking science, the balance of doubt and progress, intellectual rigor, the challenges of evolving scientific, even the spellings are wrong in this, it might be a kind of a hint, right? So answer is D. Beyond certainty, the dynamics of thought. So don't be too certain about thing. You should have some kind of critical thinking about a thing. So beyond certainty captures it. Next. Which of the following is presented in passage as a key challenge to fostering critical thinking in science? Presented in the passage as a key challenge to fostering critical thinking in science. So emphasis on critical thinking over creativity is scientific inquiry undermines the innovative potential. No, wrong, obviously. It is required actually. The increasing interdisciplinary nature of science make it difficult for researchers to develop expertise. No, interdisciplinary nature is required for modern day problems and all that. Next, pressures such as the need for funding and publication often lead researchers to prioritize expediency over rigorous evaluation. Yes, this is presented in the passage clearly. So if you need funding from organizations, foundations, even government and all that, you need to publish very quickly that yes, I am doing work, I have innovated this is the progress and all that. That pressure leads to this prioritizing of expediency, that is faster work than rigorous evaluation of a particular thing. So C is the answer. Next, let's say advances in technology have reduced necessity of critical thinking. No, advance of technology actually has increased the necessity of critical thinking. So D is definitely wrong. Next. 95th. Next passage, time dilation, a fascinating concept of Einstein's theory of relativity, challenges the very fabric of how we perceive time. So the perception of time itself is challenged under this time dilation concept. According to the theory, time is not an absolute construct, but rather a relative experience that can vary depending on observer's frame of reference. This concept arises primarily from two relativistic phenomena, two comparative phenomena, the effects of relative velocity as described by special relativity and influence of gravity. So velocity and gravity, these things they are given. So read the passage carefully. See, remember one thing, science related passages, they might appear to be tough, but actually questions related to them, they would be more direct and easy to identify from the passage. Okay. The phenomena has practical implications on Earth as evidenced by functioning of GPS, all this content, by unveiling elasticity and all these things. Okay, let's see. Which of the following can be inferred, educated guess, from the passage regarding the relationship between time and gravity? What is the relation between time and gravity that we can guess from the passage? Let's say time flows at a uniform rate irrespective of gravitational field's intensity. No. So the very reason why velocity and gravity are presented as the variables is because they have their impact on the time, this thing. So A is wrong. Okay. Next, time moves faster in regions of weaker gravitational pull as shown by example of GPS, which necessitates corrections for faster clock speeds due to reduced gravitational strength at higher altitudes. Yes. So this is the thing. Time. So this is given in the passage directly. So how gravity influences the speed of time and all these things. So B is the answer. Is an abstract phenomena with no observable effect on Earth? No, it has observable effect. This makes the option wrong. Time stops entirely in regions of extremely dense gravitational fields such as black holes, invalidating the concept of temporal flow in the presence. No, extremely dense gravitational region entirely stops. This is wrong. Time doesn't entirely stop. This is an extreme thing. Answer is B. Time moves faster in regions with weaker gravitational pull. Next, 96th. What is the central objective of the passage? So, central objective of the passage is, let's say, to argue against the practicality of applying by emphasizing the challenges in measuring relativity. No, this is not the thing. To illustrate the philosophical implications of time as malleable construct influenced by motion and gravity, emphasizing the profound questions about reality and existence that arise, elastic interpretation of time across contexts, somewhat relevant. Let's see. To promote the idea that time dilation is primarily a science fiction concept, popularized in speculative narratives. No, this is not the case. About space travel, interstellar journeys, rather than a phenomenon of significant practical importance. C is wrong. It is not a completely fictional thing, kind of thing. So no. To explain the scientific principles underlying time dilation, central objective. Scientific principles underlying time dilation, including the effects of relative velocity and gravitational strength, while highlighting its applications in technology and its broader implications for theoretical physics. Yes, this covers everything that is given in the passage. So that makes answer D. Let's see, 96D. See, so because the scope of the option is very broad, covering everything from the passage. So B is wrong because philosophical implications is the thing here which is wrong. Everything, the other things, yes, to be this thing, other things are correct, but philosophical implications, no. So it has practical implications also. So that is presented in D option. So that makes D the answer. 96D. That is the central objective. 97. Which of the following best describes the philosophical implications of time dilation as discussed in the passage? Now asked for philosophical implications alone. Earlier question was central objective, which should cover everything. So time dilation negates the traditional concept of absolute time, suggesting that time is inherently subjective and dependent on the observer's frame of reference, leading to questions about the fundamental nature of reality. Yes, this is the philosophical aspect. Earlier, we used to think that time is same for everyone. It is absolutely the same thing across the globe. So this was the thing. But now the speed of time and everything differs. So that means the reality in which we live, it has got its own what you can say differences and other things. So references leading to question about fundamental nature of reality. So nothing is absolute. That is the main philosophical implication. A is the answer. Ceases to exist entirely related. No, this is obviously wrong. Ceases to exist entirely itself is a thing that eliminates this option. Reinforces classical Newtonian understanding. No. This actually challenges. B is actually opposite option. So B is wrong. Philosophical implications of time dilation are minimal as its effects are largely restricted to math. No, they are not minimal and they are not just restricted to mathematical calculations. They have technical implications also. So D is wrong. That makes answer A. Next, 98. Which of the following best strengthens the argument that time dilation has practical applications? Practical applications, directly GPS technology. So if you look at this word, you have to pick it. That is the most important practical application of the thing. Let's not even consider the other options. You can go through them for your own clarity. But B is the answer. The use of time dilation corrections in GPS technology demonstrates its real world practical relevance. Okay, that makes B the answer directly about this thing, directly from the passage. They have given clearly in the passage also about this GPS thing. Okay, so B is the answer. Go through the other options. Next, 99. What is the primary challenge in fully understanding the phenomena of time dilation as suggested by the passage? As suggested by the passage, what is the primary challenge? Highly abstract nature of relativistic physics often limits the accessibility of time dilation concepts. Yeah, this is fine to only a select group, making public understanding almost impossible. This is a bit extreme. Let's see. The paradoxical implications of time dilation, such as twin paradox, often result in misconceptions of oversimplified. Okay, next. See, but as I said, they are all extreme. Time dilation operates under conditions that are virtually impossible to replicate in everyday human experience, as it predominantly occurs at relativistic speeds or near extreme gravitational fields. Yes, so this is the most important challenge with regarding understanding or depicting the time dilation concept, because it occurs in extreme gravitational fields, low gravitation at poles or near poles or something like that. So that makes it difficult to have real-time human experience and replication and all these things. So C is the answer. Passage emphasizes that time occurs under extreme conditions such as high velocity, strong gravitational fields, which are far removed from everyday experiences, obviously. So this makes C the answer. Lack of technology, no, this is not the thing. Technological aspect has got no role here. It is about the presence in extreme conditions. So C is the answer. Next. So next passage, it is about debate over creation of smaller states. So are smaller states essential? Will they be beneficial or not? What are the challenges if we create more and more states? All these things, they are discussed in this passage. And about Indian federalism, challenges in it, the structure, functioning of it, all these things, they are discussed in this passage. So let's see. 100 to 104 questions. Which of the following statements most accurately presents the central argument of the passage? Central argument, what it is dealing with. While creating smaller states offers potential for localized governance and empowerment, it also introduces challenges like fiscal dependency and administrative inefficiency. Yes, this can be the answer. Let's see the other options. The reorganizations of state is solely driven by linguistic and cultural demands, ignoring administrative and economic implications of smaller states. No, this is not. This is a bit extreme. The passage is actually balanced. Indian federalism ensures that smaller states thrive economically and administratively without over-reliance. No, this actually goes against the passage, because passage says Indian federalism, the smaller states are excessively dependent on center for fiscal aspects and all that, that is financial aspects. Next, D. Smaller states inherently lead to better governance and effective administration, eliminating disparities entirely in their regions? No, obviously not. Even smaller states have got disparities within them. Okay, socially, region wise, and all that. So, passage doesn't over glorify the smaller state concept as such. So, as we said earlier itself, answer is A. So, creating smaller states offers potential for localized governments. It has its advantages. At the same time, it also has challenges, disadvantages like fiscal dependency and administrative inefficiency. So, this is the thing. Next, A is the answer. Passage highlights both potential benefits and challenges, positives and negatives. Next, what is the primary concern regarding the financial viability of smaller states as discussed in the passage? So, concern regarding financial viability. Answer is the economic model of smaller states often shifts towards privatization. No, this is wrong. Actually, smaller states leading to privatization is a what you can say overgeneralization thing. Next, increased administrative costs result in economic stagnation and complete lack of development. No, again extreme. Next, smaller states fail to attract investments. Again wrong. Smaller state. There are many smaller states that attracted huge investments. So author is not that biased against smaller states. Next, D. Smaller states tend to struggle with revenue generation and are more reliant on the central government for grants, potentially weakening their autonomy within the federal structure. Yes, this is one concern expressed clearly by the author in the passage, because author clearly says that when the state is small, then revenue generation options would become limited, leading to its dependence on center for funds. So this challenges the federalism concept in which has in our constitution. So answer is D. Clearly emphasizes face financial dependence on central grants and all that. Next, 1 or 2. Which of the following best illustrates the tension between union and state governments as implied in the passage? Best illustrates the tension. So frequent disputes over resource sharing and demands of additional financial as a result of large states undermining small states. So there is no concept of larger states undermining smaller states. It is center versus states, that's it. It is not states versus states. So A is wrong as per the passage. B. The dominance of union government in financial matters. Yes, this is the thing. Center versus states, especially with regarding financial matters. Dominance of union government in financial matters leads to limited fiscal independence for states, especially smaller ones, challenging the quasi-federal nature of Indian governance. So answer is B. So again, same, both have got the same essence. So financial matters, smaller states will be more dependent. Answer is B. Let's see the other options. Linguistic RIA has successfully resolved tensions. No, it has not successfully resolved tensions. There are tensions even now. Smaller states, passage never said this. Smaller states face issues primarily due to inefficiency. No, it is not primarily due to inefficiency of the governance structures. It is primarily because of limited options for resource generation, revenue generation. So D is not incorrect as per the passage itself. So answer is B. Union government versus states kind of thing, and states dependence on union for funds. Next, what assumption underpins the argument in favor of creating smaller states according to the passage? Regional disparities in India are primarily a result of inefficient policies in larger states, which can be resolved by creating smaller administrative units. Okay, to some extent, fine. Let's see the other options. Creation of smaller states inherently fosters better national integration by reducing regional identities. No, not. Smaller states are more likely to focus on their localized governance issues, ensuring development and inclusivity for marginalized communities. Yes, this is also stated in the passage. Next, the federal structure in India is inherently equipped to manage the economic and administrative needs of smaller states without additional reforms. No, this is not correct. D is incorrect. Answer should be between A and C. I think C should be the answer. Yeah, C. The passage suggests localized governance. Smaller states ensures localized governance. So marginalized communities and regions can get better governance. So that makes this localized governance thing, smaller states thing relevant as per the passage. Passage supports smaller states from that perspective of better localized governance and reaching out to marginalized regions and communities. So that with that view, passage supports, the author supports smaller states, that is C. Next, which of the following would most effectively weaken the argument for creating smaller states? Effectively weaken. So weaken is, weaken the cause of smaller. Report highlighting administrative inefficiencies. No, this is not the thing. Highlighting inefficiency of larger states showing that small. No, this is not the thing. So this is blanket statement extreme. Next, evidence that suggests regional identities diminish significantly. No, this is wrong. They actually increase. Data indicating union government provides disproportionate share of grants to smaller states. This is again extreme. There is no such data, and even passage doesn't indicate that. Next, D, a study demonstrating that smaller states have consistently shown lower per capita GDP growth compared to larger states. Yes, study the smaller states performing better in terms of per capita GDP is the thing that strengthens, effectively weaken argument for creating smaller states. Most effectively weaken. So I have consistently shown lower per capita GDP. So creating smaller states leading to lower per capita GDP means their dependence on center is increasing. That is one argument that weakens the cause of creating more smaller states, the financial dependency part. So D is the answer. D directly challenges the premise that smaller states lead to better economic and administrative outcomes. So D is the answer. Next. So last passage under our section, logical reasoning or CR section, new education policy of India launched in 2020. So regarding these things, focusing on universal access, affordability across education levels, key highlight emphasis on early childhood care and education, ECCE. The policy introduces 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 3, 11, 15 years of curriculum structure, all these things. So they are given multidisciplinary education and research university, Meru in every district and all that. What would be the most appropriate title for the passage? Most appropriate title for the passage, shaping India's future through education policy. Okay, multidisciplinary learning and language policy. Let's see. Transforming Indian education, NEP 2020. Yes, NEP 2020 is the focus. So we should have NEP 2020 in the title itself. So that is the thing. So transforming Indian education. What is being transformed under NEP? Indian education system, of course. So C clearly reflects it. Options align with NIP's objectives. Option C succinctly captures the essence of the passage. Next. 106. What can be inferred from the passage regarding role of multilingualism in NEP? Role of multilingualism. First one, multilingual education is prioritized to create uniform linguistic standards. No. Every state will have its own linguistic standards. NEP doesn't want to create uniform linguistic standards. Wrong. Teaching in regional language until grade 5 is expected to ensure equitable access to resources and infrastructure. No, and infrastructure is wrong. How can infrastructure be accessed equitably because of teaching? So definitely wrong. Next, multilingualism is introduced to align with international education practices and preserve regional identities. It is not for some international standards. Nowhere in the passage it is given in such a term. So wrong. Encouraging regional languages is primarily aimed at reducing educational disparities and fostering cognitive growth. Yes, various studies have said that if you teach them in mother tongue or regional language, students will have better brain activity, growth, and all these things. That is one reason. And other reason is reducing educational disparities between English education and the regional language education. This is the thing. So that is the reason why NEP wants to do this. D is the answer. Next, 107. Which assumption underlies the policy's focus on activity-based pedagogy in ECCE? Activity-based pedagogy. Traditional rote learning are entirely ineffective. No. Fostering foundational skills. So this is the thing. There are some things which you need traditional rote learning. So this is wrong. Early exposure to structured learning activities ensure higher adaptability to formal education standards. This is wrong. Next. Cognitive development in early years is best achieved through experimental and interactive learning frameworks. Yes, NEP wants people to learn by doing. So learning by doing with their own hands. So all these things, they are ensured under ECCE. So C is the answer. So for cognitive development and all that. Engage is essential for multilingualism is a different concept from ECCE. So D is irrelevant here. C is the answer. Cognitive development in early years through experimental and interactive learning frameworks. Next, which of the following, if true, would weaken the policy's emphasis on regional languages? Policy's emphasis on regional languages. Let's see. Weaken policy's emphasis. Studies reveal that students learning in regional tend to outperform their peers. No, this actually strengthens. Next, research indicates a significant drop in retention rates when students transition from regional language to English post-grad grade 5. Yes, this is the biggest thing that would weaken the policy's emphasis on regional languages. The problem is that if the student learns everything till 5th class in his own language, in the regional language thing, what happens is when they shift to English medium in 6th class, they are unable to understand the things in English. So what happens then? People stop getting educated or going to school from 6th because they fear English language content from 6th class, because it's a culture shock kind of thing for them. Totally culture shock plus cognitive shock for them to see every concept and everything in English all of a sudden in 6th. So till 5th class, okay, fine, but 6th class sudden introduction of science and all that in English is a big shock. So that leads to lower rate of retention. So drop in retention rates when students transition to English post-grade 5. This weakens the focus, this policy emphasis on regional languages. So B is the correct capturing. Let's see the other options. International organizations highlight the importance of linguistic diversity for maintaining cultural heritage. No, this actually strengthens, not weakens. So C is not correct. Data suggests that a lack of teachers proficient in poses challenge in rural urban. This is irrelevant actually. The thing is about transitioning. So emphasis on regional language, how it challenges this thing. So B clearly explains the practical negative aspect with regarding this emphasis on regional language. So that makes answer B. So if transitioning leads to retention challenges, the policy's focus on until grade 5 could be questioned, weakening its premise. So I think we are done with the LRCR part. So all the comprehensions are covered. So this is how you need to approach the passages, understand the passage, the essence of the passage, the stand taken, and then understand the demand of the question, inference, assumption, strengthening, weakening, challenge, undermine, all such terms. Understand the demand of the question and proceed with the options one by one. You will definitely get very good score. So and also one more thing is that try to highlight the keywords. Try to look at the keywords very particularly. Then you will arrive at answers quickly. Okay. With this, our explanation part is done. Thank you.
Hello friends, a very warm welcome to yet another session on mock analysis. In this session, let us have a discussion on the mock analysis for mock number 2620, current affairs. So let us see what all topics did we come across in this current affairs mock 2620. The first topic, 50th anniversary of emergency in India. This year, we are observing 50th anniversary of emergency, which was imposed in 1975 by the Indira Gandhi government on June 25. So let us see what all questions did we come across in this particular session, in this particular topic. So one important trick to approach questions like this is, first you have to look at the questions and see whether these are statement based or factual. So if these are statement based questions, then you can first look at the question and try to identify the answers from the passages, because as you know, most of the passages, most of the questions in current affairs these days are passage oriented. So you can find some clue or hint or a direct reference for these questions in the passages also. So rather than reading the passages and looking at the questions, you can directly look at the questions and then look at the passage for any clue or references to answer these questions. For example, first one, which incident is cited as the immediate trigger for calls for Prime Minister Indira Gandhi resignation on moral grounds preceding the emergency? Ante which of these events has triggered the call by the Prime Minister for imposing emergency in India? The Allahabad High Court overturning her elections. So as you know, in 1975, the Allahabad High Court has delivered a judgment invalidating the election of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1971 elections. So this has been the trigger point for imposing emergency in India on June 25. So option B is the correct answer. Second, which fundamental rights protected under specific articles were guaranteed not to be suspended even during emergency by amendment of the Constitution? So, which of these fundamental rights are not suspended even during an emergency is in force? Right to protection in respect of conviction for offences and personal liberty, Article 20 and 21. These two articles are not suspended even when during an emergency is in force. So this amendment was made, this change was made by 44th Amendment, which was passed in 1978 by the Janata Party government. So one of the important amendments brought in by the new government after the emergency was 44th Amendment Act, which has made Articles 20 and 21 immune from the emergency also. Moving on to the next question, question number 27. What draconian law was primarily used for mass arrests? So during the emergency, the government has resorted to mass scale arrests of opposition parties and their public activists also. So which of these following legislations or acts were used by the government for mass scale arrests during the emergency? It is Maintenance of Internal Security Act, known as MISA Act. So this act, Maintenance of Internal Security Act, MISA Act, was used by the government to arrest people and opposition parties also during the emergency. Next question. What concept is invoked to describe how officials diligently enforced oppressive policies during the emergency? So whatever oppression and torture the government officials or the police have used in this emergency, what kind of policy is it called as? It is the banality of evil. In fact, if you see in this passage, you will have a reference to this particular policy which was implemented by the government for mass scale arrests and also for torturing the people. For example, Maintenance of Internal Security Act, MISA. So this is directly mentioned in the article. So like this, you can directly get some references or any clue or any hint for answering the questions which are given in this particular passage. So for this reason only, I always suggest students to improve their passage reading skills. So passage reading is very important for CLAT exam, and nowadays it has become more important for current affairs questions also. So the more better you are in passage reading, the better it will help you to answer questions. What is X in the passage above? So here, national emergency was imposed under Article 352. So Article 352 in the Indian Constitution talks about national emergency, and this emergency also was imposed using this article only. Who was the president during the time of national emergency? Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad. So Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad was the president who declared the imposition of emergency on June 25, 1975. What is Y in the passage? Amendment Act number 44. For example, here in the one of the previous questions, this was asked. For example, which fundamental rights protected under specific articles were guaranteed not to be suspended even during this amendment? Here it is Y. It is referring to Amendment Act number 44. So it is 44th Amendment Act that is mentioned in the passage. Next topic, next passage. Recently, the government has revised the base year for calculating GDP, IIP, and also CPI. It was in the news, it was also discussed in the classroom sessions, and it came in the exam also, mock exam. Let us see questions. The new base year for GDP will be effectively implemented from which year? Starting from the year 2026. So the government has decided that next year onwards, this new base year GDP calculation will be effective. What is why in the passage? 2011-12. The base year, previous base year was 2011-12, which has now been revised to 2022-23. The item basket and weightage for the new CPI series will be linked to the data from which survey? So the government has used Household Consumption Expenditure Survey 23-24 for revising the base year for the CPI series. So base year is revised not only for GDP and IIP, but Consumer Price Index also has seen a revision for the base year. This base year is revised according to HCES survey conducted by the government. New base year for Consumer Price Index 2024. So 2023-24, or this is the base year for CPI, whereas 2022-23 is the base year for GDP and IIP. Next topic, next question. Primary reason for undertaking this base year revision. So what is the reason for the government to revise the base year? What could be the reason? To accurately capture structural changes and reflect the current economic reality. So to capture or to measure, to assess what all changes the Indian economy is going through, for that only these base year revisions are done by the government quite regularly, like once in every 5 or 6 years the government does this. The main reason for the previously planned GDP base year revision to this year, it did not happen. Previously the government thought of revising the base year to 17-18, but it did not do. Why? Data quality concerns and economic disruptions. So due to some practical issues, due to some practical economic considerations, the government did not go for this 17-18 as the base year. Recently, it has revised the base year to 22-23. Hence, it was in news and in the exam also. Third topic, Iran and Israel conflict. So, Iran and Israel conflict was in news in the month of July, and after that, after the ceasefire was brokered between Iran and Israel conflict, Iran also has decided to block the Strait of Hormuz, thereby trying to create shortage of supply of oil throughout the world. Hence, it was in the news. So, let us see what questions are asked in this passage. What is X in the above passage? So, where is X? So, this is a factual question, and let us see what is X and where is it located. Here, Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway situated between Iran and X, acting as the sole maritime conduit connecting Y to the open ocean. So, Strait of Hormuz is located between Iran and which other territory? It is, let us see the options. So, Strait of Hormuz is located between Iran and Oman. So, if you look at the geography of the world, especially this West Asia, you will see the Strait of Hormuz located between Iran and a small country, Oman. So, for topics like this, you also have to look at the geography, the political map of this particular region, so as to get the better understanding. What is why in the passage? This Strait of Hormuz connects Persian Gulf with Oman. So here in the same line, there is a mention, acts as a sole maritime conduit connecting Persian Gulf to the open ocean. So Persian Gulf is connected to the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean like that. So this Strait of Hormuz region is very important for the passage of oil and natural gas throughout the world. India's strategic petroleum reserves are primarily designed. So India has a buffer stock of petroleum reserves called as strategic petroleum reserves, SPRs, located in some crucial areas within India. So what is the primary reason for these petroleum reserves to be located in India? What is the primary reason? Provides a short-term buffer against sudden disruptions in oil supply. So we also store these petroleum products, be it oil or natural gas, in locations like this to provide short-term buffer against sudden disruptions in the supply of oil. Let us say if Strait of Hormuz is blocked, then in case of shortage of supply, then in order to provide buffer, these SPRs will act as a very important source. For this reason, we have this. What is the key reason suggested in the passage why a prolonged and complete closure of Strait of Hormuz by Iran is considered unlikely? Under this passage says that a complete closure of Strait of Hormuz by Iran is mostly unlikely. What is the reason? It would severely harm the economy of Iran. So this Strait of Hormuz, if it is blocked completely and for a prolonged time, then this will cause more harm to Iran than what actually Iran wants to cause to the entire world. So for this reason, this passage says that Iran most likely it would not close this Strait of Hormuz for a prolonged time. Next question, which of the following is not explicitly mentioned as the potential negative economic impact of India if the Strait of Hormuz is closed and oil prices surge? So out of these four, which is not a potential negative economic impact? Three of these options are economic impacts on India, one is not. For example, increased inflationary pressures is an economic impact. Expansion of trade deficit is an economic impact. Depreciation of Indian rupee also is an economic impact, whereas a decrease in the India's agricultural productivity is not directly connected to the closure of Strait of Hormuz and the increase in oil prices. So this is not one of the potential negative consequences. Three of them are. Moving on to the next passage. This is about the recent government's decision to sanction a nuclear power plant for the state of Bihar. So Bihar, along with Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh and Haryana, some states in India are sanctioned nuclear power plants by the government. So let us see what kind of questions do we have in this particular topic. Which among the following states will receive its first ever atomic power plant? Bihar. So Bihar is in news and this topic is also about Bihar only. Which type of nuclear power plant will be established in the above said state? Small modular reactors, SMRs. So the government says that in Bihar, the government is going to set up small modular reactors, the new age, the advanced version of nuclear reactors in India. Which among the following are the targets under new nuclear energy mission? So the government has come up with its own new nuclear energy mission. Under this, the government is planning to achieve 100 gigawatts of energy by 2047. 100 gigawatts of nuclear energy by 2047. This is the stated objective under its new nuclear energy mission of India. Last question in this topic. Which among the following places doesn't have operational nuclear power plants? So out of these four, one of these places hasn't got any operational nuclear power plant. In Kaiga, we have. In Kakrapara, we have one nuclear power plant. In Narora also we have one nuclear plant. Gorakhpur, there is no operational nuclear power plant. So in topics like this, you have to know some important information regarding the places where these nuclear plants are located. For example, like this. Last topic in this current affairs mock exam, Axiom 4 mission. So Axiom 4 recently was in news. It was in news and it is directly connected with India also, because Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla also was one of the four commanders in this particular mission. And recently, this Axiom 4 mission astronauts also they came back to the world after successfully completing their journey to ISS. So let us see questions. Which among the following countries' astronauts were not a part of the Axiom 4 mission? Shubhanshu Shukla was from India, and astronauts from Poland and USA also were a part of this, whereas France is not a participating country in this particular Axiom 4 mission. Apart from Poland, India and USA, Hungary also is one of the participating country. A unique scientific experiment being conducted in this mission with potential future implications for space travel focuses on enabling insulin dependent diabetic patients to travel into space. So in this particular Axiom 4 mission, one scientific experiment was conducted, that is, which can help insulin dependent diabetic patients also to undertake space travel going forward. So this is one of the important scientific experiments conducted as a part of this Axiom 4 mission by the astronauts. The inclusion of cyanobacteria in the Axiom 4 experiments is driven by their potential to contribute to what? So cyanobacteria, what can cyanobacteria contribute to? And which is what also is one of the experiments conducted in Axiom 4 mission. Cyanobacteria can understand self-sustaining oxygen production for long-term human space presence. So to undertake much more complex and long-term human space missions going forward, these Axiom 4 astronauts also have conducted various kinds of experiments, especially on cyanobacteria, which can self-sustaining oxygen production. What is the primary purpose of ISRO sending tardigrades to ISS as a part of this mission? To gain insights into life's survival mechanisms in extraterrestrial conditions. So to know how life can self-sustain even in one of the most challenging conditions like the outer space. So to know this, ISRO also has sent tardigrades like microorganisms as a part of this mission to know much more about the mechanisms of survival of life in the extraterrestrial conditions like the outer space. Consider the following: Axiom 4, SpaceX, Gaganyaan. How many of these space missions encourage and support microgravity research? All of the three. So Axiom 4, SpaceX and Gaganyaan, all these three missions, they are having one thing in common, that is they encourage and support microgravity research. Which among the following is not a crop taken to ISS for experiments through this mission? It is potato. Whereas rice, tomato and brinjal were taken to ISS for conducting experiments by the by the astronauts. So these were some of the important passages that were in the news, that were in the exam, mock exam 2620. So I hope this mock exam 2620 current affairs analysis is of help for you. So please do keep watching Abhyaas Law Prep channel for more such important and exciting videos. Happy learning. Stay tuned. Take care.